be able to monitor from just everything.
Okay.
All right, we're live there, Holly.
Hi, everybody. We're just waiting to get the rest of our folks on. So bear with us. We're so excited today for our guests, but I want to make sure we're live before
Yeah, this is a fun day. All right.
And then, excellent. Are we live?
Yes, we're live.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Political Head Trauma, where
if Head Trauma had a podcast, it'd sound like this.
Yes. And today is such an exciting day. And I'm excited. I'm going to have you guys tell us your names and talk about your company. But if you care at all about education and the future of it and where it's going and just this amazing scenario where your child is learning in a way they are used to or that they're interested in, this show is for you. So please spend the next 2 hours with us. Get on it, make your comments, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook. We're here. We want to get these ladies questions and have them answer them for you. So,
well, Tim, and I want to make a quick pitch. I am a person who loves government spending, and I think the government is extremely good at what it does.
We should get a sarcasm meter that reads in here.
And this is, and I've always griped, the government, especially the school system, has all this real estate that stands empty 70% of the time. Whereas if you bring education into the market where you ladies are talking about, that eliminates the need for real estate standing empty and ACs running so that the buildings don't rot. And also, like we have dual immersion here, right? All the schools. Imagine the possibilities you can have with that.
Yeah, and, but the public doesn't know what we're talking about
and
yet.
they enjoy,
so
well,
this is where we're gonna expand.
Yeah, I'm just
security.
Priming. Yeah, security. Yeah, I could go in there and teach primary firearm safety, things like that.
Teach okay. We're getting it. We're so excited about this, folks.
Introduce the ladies.
But I have to say,
while I do some sharing.
Tafiti, this is a person that I've known now for 2 years.
Yes,
2 years from Stansbury Park, and I've had the luxury and honor of teaching your kid at Patriot Camp, and you've been involved as a volunteer this past year. So that's how I know you. And introduce yourself, and then please.
I will. Yes. Thank
Angie.
You so much, Holly. We're very excited to spend this time with you today. Again, my name's Kim Tafiti. I'm 20 years plus in Tooele County.
Yeah.
And we're so excited to share about our school today. We're going to talk about Virtual Horizons Charter School of Utah. It's a virtual reality charter school. And I would like to take a moment and introduce my partner, who is really the brainchild behind all of this. And so, Angie, go ahead and introduce yourself, and then I'll tell a little bit about how we got together.
Okay, that'd be great. Well, once again, thank you so much for letting us be here. We are really excited to be here. My name is Angela Hansen, Aiono. And I've been an educator in both K-12 and higher ed for the past 25 years. And I got started in the charter movement about 12 years ago when I started my first charter school. And that we'll explain more later about how we got into this virtual reality idea. But that's sort of me in a nutshell.
You don't expect mothers to get involved in VR. You expect like a teenager to come in, like cruise a skateboard down and, hats on sideways.
Nobody knows better than a mother what their child's into or what their child wants to do. And it usually involves gaming in some way.
That is true.
Exactly.
Peel them off the game.
Well, to explain that a little bit, my background is in educational technology. I've worked for educational technology companies for nearly 30 years, aging myself a little bit there. And most of them...
you started when you were 12.
Right. There you go. I'm only 29. I'm perpetually 29. Right. But most of those educational technology companies were startups. I love business. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. And also an educator at heart. I started in an education degree at Utah State and then quickly switched over to business when I realized how much work it was going to be a teacher and how much money I would actually make. But
I did the same thing with law enforcement.
there you go.
All the way through. And then I found out what they pay law enforcement. I went, wait a minute, that wouldn't even cover what I make or what I'm charging in school.
Right.
Loads.
So for me, business made more sense, but I was able to get in to education through the companies that I worked for. And so, you know, I've had the opportunity in my career to work very closely with superintendents of schools, worked with public, private, charter school districts across the nation, and have seen the best of the best and the worst of the worst. The company that I was with prior to this was an educational technology company that had a bilingual mobile reading app for children birth up to grade 3. And they had this concept of when a district would start to implement this program in their schools, that they would give free licenses to the community at large. So any family in that district's or that school's jurisdiction could download that app for free and use it with their children to read. It was English and Spanish. It would toggle between English and Spanish.
That's an excellent idea.
And it worked offline. So in other words, you could download it to your phone, but then not use your Wi-Fi, and you would have a whole library of English and Spanish books on it. It was incredible.
That is incredible.
The company's name is Footsteps to Brilliance. You can look them up online. They're still going strong, and they do great things in education. But what was interesting is we were working with school districts that neighbored the reservations, and they were serving the Native American students that were within their jurisdiction. The students would ride a bus, come into their schools. They would have their school day, and then they would ride the bus back onto the reservations. And we thought, wow, a mobile app that doesn't require mobile service, that we can get down onto the phones, would work really well in this situation, because now they would have access to books and language and songs and reading.
Even if they didn't have access to internet.
Correct. But we could never get it to take hold. It is, if you know anything about working with the Native American populations, it is one of the most difficult populations to serve. And if you look statistically at their data, they are the lowest performing demographic anywhere.
I don't want to try to invent the wheel, but do we know why? Because I know they say they're sovereign, it's a sovereign area and everything, but do we know what the problem is? Is it because they have a lack of resources?
A lack of trust, with good reason.
It's all of those things, but one of the biggest problems is they don't even have basic needs being met. So to Kim's point, the way that this whole virtual reality idea even came about was I've been working in the Four Corners area for quite some time with our Navajo. The primary tribes that are in the Four Corners are Navajo, which is the biggest one, the Navajo Nation. And then you have Hopi, which really kind of border on New Mexico, Arizona line. And then you have the White Mesa Ute tribe, and they hover around Colorado and Utah. So they're all right there in that Four Corners area. But the biggest one is the Navajo Nation. And in the Four Corners area, I can tell you 60% of them don't have power, running water, or broadband. And it's not because it's just turned off because they don't have enough money to pay for it. It doesn't extend to them.
It doesn't deliver.
So it doesn't
there.
exist.
Is that because they're sovereign and they don't allow?
It's because they just don't want to build the grid that far in.
Well, it's
correct.
Who's they? The
Here's
United
the
States
tough
government or the Navajo government?
No, it's like if you have Rocky Mountain Power, they just won't build it all the way.
Here's the tough, complicated. They're on those reservations, and yes, there's a sovereignty issue on one side.
Correct.
But there's also the issue of they are spread out on those reservations.
They are.
I've done work down there, and you'll have an old couple, elderly. We're talking in their 70s, retired age couple that live out in a I think they call it a wigwam, a roundhouse.
Right. Mhm.
And no running water,
Correct.
no heat. They have a fireplace and they hang blankets from the walls in the winter for insulation. And these are old people that don't
This
have
is
support.
incredible.
And you go out. And so that is like when you get into like Kayenta and that, they
Mhm.
do get gathered a little bit, but
Right.
but there's a lot of them dispersed, and it's a tough situation. And
It's 8,000 square miles in the San Juan School District alone.
it is rough territory.
This hurts
Gorgeous.
my soul. What?
Yeah.
I mean, why doesn't Rocky Mountain Power get with the reservation leadership and build these things? Is it because Rocky Mountain wants to make money, I assume.
They do. But I think Jared said it correctly, that it's so vast. And so you're also talking about a land structure that is a plateau. So it goes up, down, up, down.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
It's not easy to build it there. I'm not trying to take away blame from people who should figure that out anyway, but
Right.
it isn't the easiest thing to do.
So maybe they need something like Starlink, and they need
So
technology.
Starlink works there, and
that
that's great.
can
You just
get
have
to
to
that
have power
location.
in order
If you have
to
power.
plug in Starlink.
Amazing. I mean, electricity. I don't think people can fathom. We've talked about it before. Americans don't know what pain is. We've never had
Right.
this type of, but this is happening right here in America, and
Right.
and yet, because they're sovereign and because they are nations of their own, we don't know what's going on in there, right?
Correct.
Unless you're going
Unless you work
in
there,
there.
yeah.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah. So because of
Yes.
that, because we're trying to figure out how to solve certain issues, we just decided to start with what we know, which is education. And they don't. It did not work to pull them off reservation, and those were big disasters to take them off and put them in places in Brigham City, and those places did not work.
I can only imagine how long bus rides to get there to commute for your kids to go to
Right.
school.
Well, and then they were boarding there, and
Yeah,
they were away
the-
from their parents.
The Indian school, and
Yeah.
it
It wasn't successful. So
it wasn't I'll be honest, it wasn't a good situation for them. It was more something you'd see in the horror stories you read about.
I agree.
Correct.
So they wanted to be back on reservation. So one of the things we thought was, how do we were going to put a charter school down there, but because it's 8,000 square miles, if you put it anywhere in just one location, somebody's driving 2 hours
Mhm.
just to get there.
Amazing.
And so it was impossible to figure that out. We just could not.
Charters are funded privately usually, right? Like the initial
Yeah.
build of a charter and the infrastructure of the
That's
charter.
correct. Yeah. So you don't have enough money for transportation and those kinds of things. So it was just logistically a nightmare. We couldn't figure it out. And one day I was listening to an NPR actually, and they were talking about they were talking about different ways to bring education around, and the light bulb went on that virtual reality could work in this situation. Our other issue in that area is it's so remote that the schools that they do have there, your teachers don't stay very long.
No.
I
It's a
bet.
revolving door, like maybe every 3 months they leave.
Oh my word.
And so how do you build a rapport with students? How does this work? So because of that, we decided, how can we let teachers stay where they are? You're 500 miles from Phoenix, you're 500 miles from Albuquerque, you're 500 miles from Denver, and you're 500 miles from Salt Lake. How can we get teachers to stay where they are and students to be able to, especially on the reservation, stay where they are? And we can still connect not on Zoom, because Zoom is real time, but tangibly connect. And virtual reality, that was where the idea birthed. That's what we decided. That would be the way to meet those students where they are, with teachers where they are.
What year was this? Was this around
About
COVID?
2015.
So this is 5 years before COVID, when we actually
Correct.
didn't know what
Mhm.
Zoom was really,
Mhm.
unless you were in the business world.
You got it. Yes.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so that's when it sort of birthed, and I met a gentleman from Mississippi who later became a business partner, and he's now a business partner of ours
Yes.
to do this. He is he's been in technology, worked with Steve Jobs, with Bill Gates, all of those folks. He's phenomenal. And he was in Mississippi trying to kind of solve the same issue, only in the Mississippi Delta, which is ironic. Two of the
Yeah.
poorest
The
places
Cajun
in the
area.
nation. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so we got together and we just were like, this can work. And then when COVID hit, we were running a school in Arizona and we did it.
So this could work, but we still have to have power and internet.
Correct.
And so once you solve those two issues for the child,
Correct.
the sky is the limit.
That's
right?
correct.
And
Well-
they can live anywhere in the world. They can live in any remote place of
Mhm.
Arizona, Mississippi, Georgia,
Alaska.
Alaska,
We had
and they can
students
go
who are in the
anywhere in the
military
universe.
in Korea doing
Yeah.
it with us in
Mhm.
Arizona.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
let's get to the light bulb.
yes,
You and for you, those that may not know, when they're talking about virtual reality, it's a meta right now. I know the one
Yeah.
we have. It's the goggles.
Mhm.
And for example, I have a boxing class I take in a great big fancy gym, and I'm just learning to box. My kid had played gorilla tag, where she's playing with kids from all
Which
over.
is the funniest thing to watch
It's
ever.
hilarious, and her arms hurt so
Watching
bad. but
kids
her-
play gorilla
her
tag.
muscles are so strong. And also places around the world you could put on your grandmother laying in her bed that she may never see, like the Eiffel Tower, like parts of Germany. I mean, it still feels like it's in a new era because of AI. It's kind of
Mhm.
technology changes by the second. So you have my hearts here when it comes to trying to build something that requires technology, because just when you think you're ready,
It changes.
it gets
Well-
smaller or it gets faster
In-
or it gets, whatever.
In 2021, I know of 3 weddings that happened on VR. So
Wow.
the whole family could make it.
Correct.
Because it's cheaper to buy a $200 Oculus
Then
than to
out.
buy a flight to Cancun. And they put them on and they have a whole wedding. And I think we're going to see more things like that. And there was also one wedding where the bride and groom had never met in person.
Wow.
They had met in VR,
And
and
arranged
That's
a
a
meeting.
lot of trust.
Or
I
they
have
met
to-
in the
but I
They
have to
met in
tell you,
VR.
there is something to
Hilarious.
that, though. We work very closely with our partners who, some of them are in California or Washington or Florida, and we go into the virtual world with them, and that's how we meet. We're meeting in as avatars in this
That's
virtual world. I was able to meet them in person a few weeks ago, actually in Florida, and it was
So
like
surreal.
I had known him my whole life.
So you've got the voice. The
You have-
avatar may look different, or they may use
They can look different.
got
but
VR
it's
where you can
still
take a
them.
picture
It
that-
is still them,
Right.
Yeah.
And there is science behind it. There's science behind why your brain feels like it's real. And that's because it's engaging every single sense that you have, even your vestibular system, which is your balance and your position, and your preoccipital, which is, okay, where am I in relation to my space? So that's why you can be on a roller coaster in VR and your stomach can go up into your
Yes.
throat because you are actually on the roller
Or
coaster.
the scary games in there that they
And,
play.
and to be honest, I mean, if you've seen the movie Ready Player One, we Jared did a kind of a knockoff of that on our thumbnail, right?
Yeah.
If you have seen that movie, takes place way in the future, but the most impoverished people in the country live in the metaverse, where they pick their avatar and they've got the ability to do this and this, and they have powers, and they wear a suit, which
Yeah,
touch
haptics.
and feel is the only thing that's really not happening. Every
they've
other
got-
sense.
we've got
However,
they
you
have
do,
them, but I
however
mean-
you do have, there is haptic feedback in it. So if I were to come up to you in virtual reality and put my hand out to shake,
You can feel it.
you can feel it.
on
Yeah,
my
there's
handle,
buzz, but
on
they
the-
are making haptic suits right
And
now.
I know
Yes.
my friend has a vest that he wears during Call of Duty that actually, when he gets shot, it actually makes
Can feel
it
it.
Yes.
feels.
Yes.
I know we're going there. Technology is
Mhm.
taking us there to where we
Mhm.
can totally engage in
Mhm.
this world.
Military's been using VR and these full haptic suits for their training, for simulations for years. VR is actually, it's new to us, and especially in education, but It's been around for decades.
Right.
Mhm.
And there is a huge body of research that continues to grow on how it works in the brain, the benefits of it. So while it's new to us, it's not really new.
Yeah.
And we're just bringing something into education because education has got to change.
Yes.
Okay, let's get into it now.
Especially in those
What-
areas that are underserved.
Correct.
In
So
the
when you
underserved
said
areas.
VR, this could work.
Yeah.
Then what happened?
Our partners in Mississippi, we just started to make a plan and go forward with it. And then we took over a school in Arizona. And ironically, it was with some of our most vulnerable students. That school was about 95% free and reduced lunch. The majority of our students were not Native American, they were Hispanic. But it was the same type of student that we were looking to educate using this type of technology. So when the pandemic hit and everybody had to go home and be on Zoom, this was our chance to try it. We were like, you know what, we're going to just go for it. So we purchased 350 headsets. We sent all the kids home with them. We didn't really have curriculum. We had some curriculum, but we didn't have it. We were sort of building the plane while we were flying it.
Oh, wow.
And so we gave all of these kids these headsets and a computer. And we said, some of the time you'll be on Zoom. Most of the time you'll be in VR. And they loved it.
How old were they?
They were fourth. We did 4th through 8th grade. It was a K-8 school.
That's perfect.
This is phenomenal.
And
I
the
can't
colors,
imagine.
I mean, you can capture the colors that children are drawn to.
Yes,
You can capture environments they're drawn to.
correct.
They can personalize it to make it more enjoyable experience.
Yes.
And I mean, like my idea is like, what if Crazy Horse taught a
Oh.
history of the Native Americans?
What if you
Right.
sat the
You got
child down, the 5th grade student who's learning about the Constitution, and you sat them down inside the Constitutional Convention next
Correct.
to the founders and watched how they established the Constitution of the United States and the actual compromises and arguments and glory that was happening all in that time? You would get kids to love history.
Correct.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
a lot of
And
them
what
would
if
probably
they-
go, what is that wig for?
Well, you can
Well,
still
and they
say
could
that.
ask about it, right?
Yeah.
So now they can actually have a conversation with them about it, and they would learn about the times. They would learn more about that period of history and why they wore wigs, how they took care of them. They can ask any question they want,
It's amazing. To me.
and it's a fully immersive learning experience. So what we know about how the brain learns is that experiential learning by doing, is
Absolutely.
one of the best ways to do it. So that's what we're able to bring inside of VR. Think about every student that has an opportunity to have their own frog, and they're going to be going through that dissection on their own. And I can assure you, it's as gross in VR
Right.
as
And no
it
frogs
is
were harmed.
yeah.
Right.
And
no
you still
people
get
were
that
harmed.
weird
Right.
feeling, when you pick up that frog and it's kind of jiggling because it's so real. But everyone now has their own frog. Schools can't afford to do things like
Yep.
that. They
This
can
is
afford to bring
phenomenal.
one cow heart in and dissect it. Now everybody can have their own cow heart and dissect it.
And
And
you
they
can go
can-
inside the heart, which
They
is
can
different.
go deeper and you
Mhm.
can, looking at it, the skies are the limit with what you guys can do with this.
Mhm.
And we saw incredible, just to talk about our experience when we put our kids in virtual reality. So during that time, nationwide, after everybody went home, I'm sure we all had kids who went home, and 40% of students during the pandemic 2020 never logged on one time.
I know it's crazy.
40%.
And we're feeling it now in our education
That is
numbers.
correct.
How many kids would have logged on?
We had every single
Even-
kid log on.
I have no
Yes.
doubt. This is interesting. It's fun. It's something
Yeah.
that
And it's a gift
it's a
that you're,
binary world they understand, that they love.
And they were excited about
What makes
it.
me sad is that group of kids are the kids that didn't eat sometimes unless they were eating at school.
Correct.
And then, so hopefully there's still school lunch in the park or something during that
Yeah,
time.
we did do that. We had school lunch at our school. So we had students, and we had some students whose parents had to work and they could not leave their kid home. So we would separate them the best that we could, and we still had them come to the building, which is why we could still serve school lunch. But
and they could still VR in the school.
correct.
Yeah.
And they would sit at their desk and put on their VR and do it that way. Yeah.
And if you got a boy who's maybe a little bit active and doesn't want to sit in his chair.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking about the kids who are in special needs.
Yes.
Imagine, because I know that they've merged the kids with special needs. When we were kids, they were in a special, like a special ed area. Now they're merged with their classmates. They're in the classrooms, and they do sometimes need extra attention, and it does slow the class down. This is a whole way to get everybody included.
Correct.
Everybody. And I was telling my husband last night, for this type of school, you could go out and recruit the best teachers.
Correct.
Pay
Yes.
them well.
Well, yeah, this
Correct.
is how.
And now you are a force.
Correct. You got that right.
Yep.
Here's another downside. We'll get the downside out. This will make teaching a very competitive job, and it'll make the people who make it. You'll probably end up with teachers that are a lot like mid-level sports stars.
That would be awesome.
Seriously,
Well, this is going to,
a teacher that say every parent wants this theater teacher.
Right.
And everyone can have it.
Yeah.
Yes.
it is true. You've hit on several key
You really have.
advantages on why this works and why it's such it works to scale out the highest quality education that you can bring, right? What's exciting about it for teachers, just to add to what you're talking about, is they can create, like, if they can think it up, it can be created for them and they can do it.
I can you imagine taking the students, but you're a literary teacher or novels teacher, and you decide to take on Harry Potter? I mean, you're visiting Harry Potter's world.
Mm-hmm.
You could be one of the professors from Harry Potter. Your avatar could literally be,
You
what's the
can
wizard's
have
name?
class at Hogwarts.
Yeah.
What's the
You
wizard's
can
name?
set up the houses like Hogwarts. It's just incredible. So we are bringing that creativity back to teaching.
It's
We're
amazing.
empowering teachers in a way that they're not empowered right now,
Right.
and they do have to follow the dictates of their curriculum, of their district, of what some of those decisions are made. And of course, resource wise, it's really hard to get super creative. Hey, I would really like to take my kids over to the pyramids. That is just not
We're gonna
feasible,
jet over
right?
Right.
It's never going to happen. Or maybe a once in a lifetime trip, and there's lots of fundraising that goes behind it. But now, if I want to have my class in Egypt today, I can have my math class in Egypt.
How
you could.
much fun would learning about Greek mythology be?
There you go.
How boring is Greek mythology in a book?
Oedipus. I mean,
How much fun would it be if
You're with Zeus. Or,
you're
Mhm.
meeting them, you're seeing them, you're
And
seeing.
you maybe have their powers. It's just really, the sky's the limit. So for a teacher who wants to do something like this, they absolutely have the ability. And I think that's that we found in the school.
Mhm.
Because in 2020, there wasn't all of the development that exists today. We have leapfrogged
We have.
leaps
Oh,
and
yeah.
bounds in just 5 years. But these teachers had to kind of on the fly.
these
Decide how
those
they were gonna
teachers
do
went through a
this.
lot.
And development in VR can happen quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, you can mute everyone so you don't have
Correct.
outside noise.
Mhm.
I imagine that
And you can lock them down so they sit in a group. So you
Right.
can give them
Lock them in place.
instruction so they can't talk
A
and they can't
perimeter.
move. And then you let them go and just go explore.
Do you have rules on say what the avatar can be? Does the kid have to maintain a certain avatar where they're not being
So it doesn't have to look like them.
dragons and
Yeah, it
sitting
could
in
be
the
anything.
class.
If you want to be a big blue dinosaur or you want to be an alien, for some of our kids, that is very attractive to them
Sure.
because then they don't have to be who they are every day.
And saves the family money on school shopping.
Yes.
Well,
And it gives them a little more creativity into what they can be. And we had that.
I'll
when
bet
we-
you got crazy stuff out of like second and third graders. That's probably
we had some really good things
When
come
they
out
s-
of our 4th and 5th graders.
What if they
were
are
Yeah.
all
great.
the same character? I guess it wouldn't matter, right? If
No,
they
because
all
their
wanted
name
to
is
be-
above them, so you can tell who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys, I just want to. Do you have the website pulled up?
yeah.
So I'm really excited for this. And the name of your website, quickly, do you want to just tell me?
Yeah, vhcsut.org, or you can even do vrutah.org. Very easy. Virtual
So,
Horizons Charter School.
I've shared it on the Facebook comment, and I will share it.
Are
on-
these actual, like in the classroom, or those actual kids in your classroom there?
These are models.
Okay.
We
Oh.
do we
And that's that Oculus Rift on that last kid.
yes. So we are going to
So-
standardize on the MetaQuest 3S. That's what we're
Okay.
going to start with.
Yeah.
It's not very expensive.
No.
I think they're what, $400 right now.
And every student in our charter school will get them for free.
And then you buy them in bulk. I'll bet you
we're
guys
buying
get
in bulk, and so we do have a distributor and we work very closely with Meta.
and then you get Zuck
Mhm.
on board, and
There you,
you
go.
know his.
They are because
From
of us
your
and our
lips to his ears.
yes,
Yes.
because of our partnership with Meta and our partnerships with Meta. Meta's actually done a lot of development
Oh yeah.
to help facilitate schools that need different kinds of security and access controls on these headsets. And you bring up a good point. We have to make sure that they're safe for our students. That you can access the world on these
Yeah.
VR headsets, and in a school environment, that's not always appropriate.
Right.
So we work very closely with Meta on that, and they are in development on features that help us lock the headsets down and make sure that students are safe in that environment and accessing the educational tools that we give them access to.
But I mean, right now, high schools will hand out laptops to all
right.
the kids. So
Mhm.
those features right now, we know there's
Yes.
boundaries that we need to
There's
stay
boundaries.
in technology. But
Mhm.
I remember during the campaign,
There's a fun video down. Sorry, I see you scrolling down there. There's a video that right there that they can click on, and that gives you an idea of some of what it looks like. It's obviously 2D. A video is different than
So I want to play
being in
this, but I
3D.
wanted to just quickly mention that
Yeah.
that one of the campaign on the Democrat side was touting almost that there's a 40-something% difference in
Oh.
language barriers in the classrooms. This is
There-
phenomenal. So you could be teaching children who don't speak English as their primary language using subtitles, and they're learning the language,
Mhm.
starting at any language.
Correct.
They could literally take German from a teacher sitting in Germany. And
Correct.
this is so different than a teacher who knows how to teach German. I took
Correct.
German for 4 years, got to Germany and realized I don't know what I'm talking about. And
It
to them,
sounds
I sound like a
right?
You speak like a child. But you guys, I know all of you are probably thinking right in your mind right now one aspect of this, and times it by a infinity, because it feels like there's so many applications for this. And I am a visual learner, but I'm also a learner that when I take notes, I usually can remember what notes I took. So for kids, do they do any writing?
Yes.
yes, great question.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we do have a learning management system that they still like. If you've ever taken a course in Canvas, if you are familiar with Canvas, your teachers put their assignments inside of Canvas and you have to do it that way. We still use those.
Okay.
But you
Ours is
can,
Google Classroom.
There,
Yeah,
it's
same
very
thing.
similar.
Same
Okay,
thing.
same concept.
yeah.
Yep.
And so we use those things, but you can also test inside of the virtual reality. But let me say one thing about, you just triggered it with your note taking, right?
Mhm.
So part of when we take notes and we do those things, we're memorizing
Yeah.
and we're trying to memorize what the teacher's saying. Inside of virtual reality, what you're doing is creating memories.
Mm.
And when you go to take a test, That's very different.
Oh, but it
Your
hits
recall
real
is very different. So if I ask you, hey, what's one of the funnest things you remember as a child when you went on vacation with your family? You could probably recall it immediately.
Yeah.
Tell me where you were, what it felt like, what it smelled like, all of those things. It's the same thing in virtual reality. So if you are going to take a test afterward or a state test afterward, you're like, oh, I was just there. I know what this is because like I know what a great white shark looks like because I was just talking to one. And it's different than reading it in a book, writing notes and being like, okay, what was that?
Yeah, you're watching it
shark?
eat. You're watching how it hunts. You're watching if it
Or
sleeps.
you're asking it questions.
And when how long it takes to give birth. Like you're watching these things. And I recalled this when I was talking to our volunteers for the Patriot Camp. I recall so easily my 5th grade history class. My 5th grade teacher did a mock constitutional convention with us. And I was Rutledge from South Carolina and John Rutledge. And my state had to defend. We were from the South and we needed slaves. And so as a 5th grader who absolutely hated the idea of slavery, I had to learn and understand that it was about production and that I didn't have profit without this extra step. That is so easy to recall for me, like you said, because I lived it.
Right.
And we fought a lot in that class and we asked a ton of questions and it got weird. I don't think a teacher could do that in a classroom setting anymore.
Right.
With that type of thought process. But in VR, you're putting the children to view it. It's no your side, their side. It's what happened in documented history.
Yep.
And you can stop it and say, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's like you're in it and then you can pull it out like you're in a movie and then you go back in it and then you can record it and go back and watch it, which is super weird.
Can a parent join the child during their classroom setting if they have a VR of their own?
Yeah. So one of the things it would be the same as if you wanted a parent to join you in a regular classroom. Can it be done? 100% yes. Would there be rules to it? Absolutely.
Could they maybe do the screen sharing option that comes with the Oculus
They
now?
could.
Absolutely.
That'd probably be the
So-
ideal way, so there's
again,
no interruption.
Yep.
Fly on the wall.
Because I think 2020 showed parents when they were over the shoulder, at least for me, watching my kid learn via Zoom or not learn, whatever. I learned a lot about what they were learning, and parents were on fire all around the country because wait, what is my kid supposed to read? What? And they got a front row seat to what happens in the classroom. I think we're in a better place in the country now as far as curriculum goes, and hopefully the states will take it more heavy and counties will have more say over their curriculum and down to the spot.
Sure.
But I can only imagine that watching as a parent my child come alive, look forward to going to school and seeing what they're going to do next, and then to see teachers get to be teachers and literally bring this subject to life. Like you said, who could be teaching them science and physics?
Mm-hmm.
We literally could have, I'm having a brain fart. What's his name? Einstein.
Yeah.
Einstein.
Sorry,
Yes.
you guys, I'm fighting a cold or something or a throat thing. But Albert Einstein could be teaching them what pi is and the laws of physics and
Correct.
all these things. I wouldn't forget that.
Right.
Yes.
Well, and you could incorporate history in with physics by Newton being your teacher one day and Einstein the next, and Marie Curie and
The evolution too
Bruto and
Yeah, which would be super cool.
of
wouldn't it?
everything.
You know, and teachers, yes, students as well. Students can also create in VR.
Yes.
So think about being a student and you need to create a city plat and you've got to plot it out. You can actually create these objects.
Right.
And then
Civics.
they become 3D.
Mhm.
They're automatically 3D. You can lift them up, you can share them. You can start to manipulate it. So think about how math comes alive. If you are graphing, you can actually see the graph in 3D.
Or go inside the graph.
Or go inside the graph. Now think about what kind of connection that creates in the brain to that. So part of the reason
5-year-old
why
would
it
learn
sticks,
so
the reason why
quickly.
it sticks and the
Mhm.
reason why recall is so much better in it is because you're lighting up so many more areas of the brain,
Correct.
and you're also engaging your emotions. And when you do that, you're creating this memory and the learning sticks. It is why when you look at the research, recall's better, performance is better, outcomes are better, hands down, in a VR learning environment over traditional and over a kind of computer-based, desktop-based learning environment. Because we have now just engaged everything. So there's actual science why it works better. But as a student, I can create my own objects. It's no more just the teacher giving me the knowledge. I'm going to try to dump all of my knowledge in you. I am the all-knowing teacher, and I'm going to fill up your brain with all of this information. As a student, I'm actually doing it myself, and I can present. I can share this with my classmates. I can teach my classmates. Now we're
Amazing.
talking about real learning.
Well, not to mention our world's not moving backwards. We're moving
Correct.
forward into where
Mhm.
learning how to manipulate the I don't know, the computer world is more important.
Well, yeah.
Learning how to, and it's going to get to where like even coding is going to be a thing of the past. It's going to be,
Right.
you're going to be doing it with Gronk or Chat GPT or something.
Well,
You're going to be
Absolutely.
you're going to be inspiration for an AI to do something and
Correct.
to learn how to do that.
Mhm.
I'm picturing word problems in math as a kid, where
There you
rather
go.
than I'm reading this word problem, no, I'm watching Jane go to the store. She has 5 $1 bills. She gives
Mhm.
Tommy $3 bills, in real time. Or a 5-year-old, you're doing what's 5 apples plus 3 apples, and you're sitting there, and there's the kid with their 5 apples, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8. Like, I can just see 5-year-olds being so immersed in it.
Mhm.
And I just,
Think about
I think
phonics. Think
it's
about
phenomenal.
learning the English language in a way where I am manipulating the sounds of the English language, and I'm able to map it to something that I can physically, touch and interact with,
Mm.
and how quickly they'll adopt that language, how much faster they take up to 3rd grade to learn all of the phonics and phonological awareness of the English language. Schools take from pre-K to 3rd grade
And then up to
teach
5th,
them all the
just for
sounds,
vocabulary.
all the possible sounds of the English language. That's how long it takes.
It's
Think
a
about
hard
how
language.
it is a hard language. Think about how rapidly you can learn the different rules of the English language in VR.
I'm thinking about, what about when you take music class? Look how many kids on VR can play guitar, know
you go.
notes,
Right.
and read notes.
Right.
Imagine my child is able to, because music is like a second language also.
Right.
And the younger you start, the better you can be. I mean, kids could be playing violin and playing piano and learning the notes and hearing. And I just, there's so many applications here that I'm so excited by it.
They could get a letter in that shooting game you play.
Oh, Call of Duty.
Yeah, they can get a
There you
letter and
go.
call,
They
but
can
there's things
build
like
games.
this. Yeah.
They can build
Correct.
games.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then present
Nice.
to their class, hey, do you want to play this? I chose to build a video game on my assignment, and here you can join me in this game. And now it's like a VR game that's free that all the students in the
There you
class
go.
can play. And
Yes.
I just see so much of the future is part of this, because we've talked on the show so many times about where AI is bringing the country and where
Mhm.
people's jobs are headed and
Mhm.
where colleges are headed.
Mhm.
How many people could spend a few $100s on a good VR, and then their child could literally go to elementary, junior high, high school, college, and get so much better, fulfilling education? And I know a lot of people, I'm sure people are worried about screen time, and they're probably worried about the parameters and the people infiltrating or doing something negative to affect your child. But I think of the security of knowing your kid is just in the next room.
I have an interesting story about security and being in virtual reality. So when we put our students in virtual reality in Arizona, and they all went home, we had phenomenal teachers who were literally building the plane as they were flying it. And they're actually working for us now. So we're really
great.
excited about that.
Yes.
But one of our teachers she's just a phenomenal teacher. And she was in class one day with everybody was in virtual reality. And one student that she just kept wondering what was wrong with him. Like it was his avatar, and she would ask him a question and he would just do things like, he wouldn't say much. And he wasn't walking around as an avatar like he would normally walk around. And he just didn't seem like himself. And she kept watching him. And finally, at the end of the day, she called the administrative office. And she said, I am telling you, this kid is not him. Somebody has his VR on, his virtual reality headset on. It is not him. I can tell it's not him. And so they said, okay. And they immediately called the Division of Child and Family Services. And so what had happened was that kid had been taken by his dad unlawfully. And his dad wanted to know what was going on in his school. So he put the virtual reality headset on and was walking around. And the police officers and the DCFS showed up at his house and got the kid back to where he was supposed to go.
Well, they were able to track the VR.
They were able to track the VR, and they were able to, and she could tell it wasn't him. And the police officer came to the school and said, how do we get this into the hands of every kid who has gone home? Because we know that there are child abuse cases happening, but everybody went home and we're not hearing about them because they're not in school anymore. And they said, we need this in the hands of everyone because the way that you interact is different. You can just turn your Zoom on and never show your face, or you're there.
Well, and also the teacher is looking at a screen of 30 to 40 just face shots.
Correct.
If they've even got that on and they're not just talking.
If they turn the camera on. Right.
And VR's interactive. We're going to see VR show up in regular schools any day now. It's just like the computer when we drew, what was it? We played Oregon Trail, and then we learned how to draw our own little game where a stick figure walked,
Right.
That's aging me.
Whatever, Grandpa.
But everyone dies of dysentery. That's what I learned.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody does.
Can you imagine the civics lesson about building a city and the infrastructure required?
And they can focus in on what they want to learn. A child can focus in on stuff. Now, granted, you're going to get them a long way if they want to learn mechanics and stuff. You can get them a long way, but
you could do.
But they'll still, you'll still have to have real world stuff. But the VR. The VR, especially, I'm thinking.
But it will speed you up.
For younger
so you'll
kids.
Get a lot further. And then when you get to the car, you'll be like, oh, I was just here.
How many high school kids do you think?
How would that work? Would the school have a day where the kids come to a location for hands-on?
Well, in a school setting, and there are schools that are adopting it. Okay. What they're doing is they're putting in labs. Just like you would have a computer lab or a roving cart of computers, you would have a roving cart of headsets. And so you can be physically together and still do it. And they will do things like science experiments, or they will be taking, they'll be doing a deep dive into To Kill a Mockingbird, Lee Harper's To Kill a Mockingbird. They might be doing something like that. So you can still do that. But what they're not doing is the entire school or all of the learning in VR.
And then having it be a day where instead of the opposite.
It's probably
you're
class.
on it for a period. And today is it's time for this class to have their day in VR. What we're doing, which flips all of this on its head, is The VR is the school.
It's
And then
amazing.
you step out of it for special stuff.
You can
Correct.
step out of
Yeah.
for
Like,
special
for
stuff.
So
a
say
lab.
if you're like diesel mechanics is something Tooele offers, you go to the TATC to
Yes.
do it.
Mhm.
Where it'd be, they would go to school with you guys,
Mhm.
and then they would just sign up for that extra,
Yes.
and that'd be through the
This
school
is a
district.
homeschooling dream.
Yes.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it
a
is.
dream.
And I mean the costs are so low, like theater productions. How low would
you
that
could
cost
do
be?
these in VR.
Where you'd have obviously like you'd probably, for the first graders, you'd still want to have the bicycle circus and those things because that's an event. But to put on a theater play and that, I mean,
Well, our school can leverage community centers or
Mhm.
or even rent school buildings if
Yeah.
but they can do a lot of the preparation inside of VR. And that can be the culminating event where they come together. Let me give you another example. We could be in our life sciences or whatever science class we're taking, we could be working on a community garden where they would learn the concepts in their class and they're practicing those
Amazing.
concepts. And you can actually plant a garden in VR, but you can actually have a physical garden
at their
where-
house that
at
feeds
their
their
house,
family.
or because we're statewide, Virtual Horizons is statewide, we'll have regions where of students, right? So they can have a community garden here. So we in Tooele
Mhm.
County, we could put a community garden here and the students are coming on a schedule to tend the garden. They can harvest, they can sell, and think about all of the standards and all of the learning
It's
that's
just the
going on.
knowledge that they're
So
gaining.
we do
Right.
have plans in our school for this kind of in-person activities that culminate around the units, culminate around the learning. Let's come together, let's do some real world stuff. But we're doing a lot of that in VR. I've been taking notes because you are hitting on so many wonderful things that I did want to bring up. That time on screen, everybody is going to have that question. And is this safe? Because it is pounded into our heads that we need to limit screen time. We
Yeah.
need to, and we can actually see the effects that technology is having on our students' social and our families' social emotional well-being.
Right.
I mean, that is a real issue today.
I think what it is it's dopamine overload, but imagine mixing dopamine with the learning. That's
you go.
a different animal than just
Well, and
a
there's a
dopamine
schedule
over.
for it.
technology. So you have to understand also the research and the type of technology that changes our kids' brains, especially when they're infants and they're young. We're talking about rapidly changing screens in video games and TV shows and movies. That's what changes the brain in our kids. Now VR, we're not even introducing it necessarily until 4th grade. It's one of the reasons in the early school that they maintain K-3 pretty much in an online environment during COVID. But our 4th and up were in the headsets, right? And that's why we intentionally in our school proposed starting in 4th grade. It's not that we won't ever offer K-3 and that they couldn't be in VR, but we're mindful of that. But even then, our day is structured so just like you would be in a physical school building,
Yeah, the
you'll have a bell
structure.
schedule.
Yeah.
And you will attend math at a certain time with your class. You'll go in synchronously with your teacher and your classmates. You'll be learning together. And that lesson may take 20 to 30 minutes of your class period. And then you'll come out of VR and then you'll be doing some online work through the Canvas platform where the teachers put assignments or reading or writing things, or maybe we are meeting to work on tend our garden, whatever those assignments might be. So our students aren't in the headset for, a full 6-hour day of learning. They're coming in and out, and they're on a bell schedule, just like you would be if you were in a real building.
Well,
That's another thing I wanted to bring up is everyone that's gone to homeschooling and everything else, they've said how much time is wasted at school, dead time that they're finding when they homeschool and focus their kids on just meeting those. They're like usually 2-3 hours a day knocks it out of the park. And then the kid has more free time
Right.
to pursue their interests outside of school.
Right. Yeah. And
So-
that's exactly what we're thinking as well.
the structure is important. And then I know
I've
that
got to step
schools
up real quick.
schools are already using Chromebooks. And my son in high school is using a
Yes.
Chromebook in every single class. I do think that K through 3, it's important these kids learn to write and, cursive
They need to
and all
develop.
those things, but they can do that too, just on a bigger scale. I think the technology is coming so quickly that it's a matter of time before you can hold a pencil and what you're writing is happening.
Holly,
It's happening.
It is happening. The pen is being developed.
Yes.
It is.
It's
the
almost
pen
there.
is almost there.
And then you have hit
Mhm.
everything educationally that is needed to
Mhm.
really give a kid a fair start. The reading, huge. And if you've got a child struggling with reading, having captions on all the time during class, it gives them both a visual and hearing it. And kids nowadays love to watch TV with captions on. It's the craziest
It
thing.
is crazy, but it's
Um,
probably helping with the reading.
Yes.
The reading scores.
Yeah.
My kids are great readers.
Yes.
So hi, Thomas.
Hi,
I'm
Thomas.
so not used to the camera angle.
Yeah.
So he says, "Good evening, good morning, dears. My best regards from Liberland friends and followers." And he's in Germany, I think, right, Thomas?
Oh, welcome.
He said, "I think the AI is also more and more important in the school education now.
Mhm.
I think AI it's coming. Whether we're ready or not, folks, it's coming. And I think the guiding it in a direction that is
Yes.
healthy and is, it's universal. It can affect kids. Imagine art. My daughter's a phenomenal artist. And once they create that technology where she's holding the brush, she's holding the pen, now her art class has just gone from watercolor, chalk, she can spray paint, whatever she wants is just right here to pick up. And here's your canvas. And her art is going to be different than the child next to her or the teacher, but it's all interactive. And then she can bring it to life and animate it. It's going to just, you're going to hit scientists, artists, left brain, right brain. This is huge.
Thomas, this was Thomas' comments, right? About the AI.
About AI, yeah.
Yeah. So I couldn't agree more. And I think
agree.
we're on the same page. We have to embrace AI and we have to help our students understand the power that they now have because of it and how to use it effectively
And safely.
So, as we were talking earlier, when we started this journey, Angie started it in 2015. We're doing the first school during COVID in 2020. AI did not exist.
Well, in its form now.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're not even in the final form.
Right? As
Mhm.
broadly for you and I as consumers, we can access AI now, and it did not exist in that form.
Right.
And but the VR developers have already incorporated it in. So when we actually proposed this school to the State Office of Ed, Charter School Board, that it wasn't a concept that we always said it's going to look different in 2025 when we actually launch the school.
It's going to look different in 2025 and a half.
Exactly. But, my son that graduated from computer science in 2022, AI was not part of even his program.
Right.
But now as a software engineer, he's using AI to develop. It's just that fast. And AI is here. What's the next thing? So what's beautiful about this platform is that we can leverage that. Whatever the new thing
in
is,
real time,
we can bring it in, right? And we're helping our students. So it reminds me of this story that I really want Angie to share about the young girl who was in the school but was disengaged but needed the help and developed that heart for the heart program.
Pull your mic in just right to the edge.
Is that better?
Yep, that's
Okay.
perfect.
So when we were working with our friends in Mississippi, they had the developer that lived there. One of his goals was to try and teach young people how to develop inside of virtual reality. And so he went after those who were the most vulnerable, and he chose a couple of people who dropped out of high school. One dropped out in 9th grade and the other one dropped out in 8th grade. And their goal was to go and pick cotton. That's what they were going to go do.
To go and pick cotton?
Yep. That's what they were going to make a living, picking cotton.
Mississippi.
In
Were
Mississippi
were
Delta.
they having problems at home, or
Nope.
they just wanted to be a day
That's
laborer?
no, it wasn't even that they wanted to be a day
They
laborer.
just didn't like school.
They just had no idea what to do. They just came from homes where they only had one parent. That parent was working 2 or 3 jobs.
Wow.
So they were just trying to make
you need
ends
water?
meet. No, I'm okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
we've got waters if you guys
Appreciate
need.
that.
It's a common problem. It's an epidemic across the country.
Yeah.
These kids just don't, they're not engaged in school. It's
Well-
not exciting for them.
Let's face it. As engaging a place as school is, it's not.
It's not.
School's
That's right.
awful.
So
Yeah.
Thomas,
It's awful. That's where
Thomas actually mentions, he's asking, and I don't know if you watched the beginning of the show, but please do. It says, was there a so-called homeschooling during COVID period in the US?
yes.
And what influence
Yes.
did being separated have on the children's psyche, and how was this dealt with?
There was
this
my
is how
sister.
some
This
people
is-
thought to deal with it.
Mhm.
And yes, we had homeschooling, and it was a bunch of Zoom, and it was kind of put together last minute. And sadly, some of those teachers were wearing masks and for classes that needed to see how the mouth moved and to hear how the sounds for spelling and vocab. It was very messy.
I can tell you locally,
Kids were struck and hurt by it, and we see it
a
every day.
lot of
It is a mess.
a lot of mothers, when some of the rules were coming down that the schools implemented on, I mean, schools mentioned fines a handful of times for parents if a mask dropped. And I know 3 or 4 mothers in Grantsville all said, we're not dealing with this. And they all pulled their kids out of school and found a local pod.
I just
and-
homeschooled.
and-
pod.
Yeah,
From
and they
Zoom.
kept their kids up with French. They hired a French lady in France to Zoom with them and do their French every day. And the kids really enjoyed it. The thing I think that my sister sent her kids back was the time consumption it took with them.
Oh,
Yeah.
You know,
It's a
her,
lot.
Oh.
Kids
homeschooling
don't listen
takes
to their parents.
even with a pod.
Stress on a parent.
Right.
It takes a lot of time, but I don't know. I dig this idea. Well, look, I'm never going to learn modern technology, but let's not stop the kids from learning it.
I don't think so. I think this is just as exciting for us.
Oh, it's very exciting.
because we could. I bet there's classes we could take via
I
VR
I
from
play
a program like
I
this.
play
and
on
learn.
the VR and
Yeah.
I've taken physics classes on YouTube. I'm a
But YouTube has been a
YouTube certified
teacher for
mechanic.
adults and students. This is the new YouTube option to be able to go onto VR. And I mean, I learned how to fix a dripping faucet in my kitchen by watching a video on YouTube. I built my son a big huge head for Comic-Con that if you asked me to do it now, I could never do it. But somehow I did this and created this amazing
Yeah.
thing. Now I'm looking at a VR option where as a mom, I can go in and understand, oh, so this is how you do a graphic design for the podcast. Something that's totally so foreign to me. You did a thumbnail and I'm like, wow. Like now it's
Holly,
something
I'm
I
learning
could
how to
learn.
weld in VR right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can
There is
learn how to weld.
we have a welding CTE course.
That is awesome.
I'm also
Amazing.
learning how to
Yeah.
become a drone pilot in VR because we have a drone CTE course. It's just I would never go to a trade school and pick up a welding tool and learn how to do that. But I'm learning the different welding tools.
I
I'm
learned
learning
how to
do
weld
straight
because I was a
lines.
kid and my dad had a auto body shop. So
This is it.
Well, and it brings back
could
this apprentice,
everything.
this apprentice model that actually worked. If you were going to be a printer in, the 1700s, the 1800s, what would you do? You would go and work with the printer and you would learn hands-on how to do it. And it's bringing back that.
I'll tell a funny story
model.
real quick about one
I
of
don't
our
think her
great
Spanish
great
story was
ancestors.
finished.
She
Oh,
will
that's okay.
finish.
I'll
She
fit-
will
I'd
finish
like-
her
I wanna hear the
story.
funny story.
Yes.
So
we wanna
one
hear
of
the
our
funny story.
great ancestors, I think, might have been on the other side, but was his father died and his mother had 5 kids, and he was like third to the youngest boy, and the other 2 were girls. So she sold him to a glove maker.
Mhm.
Wow.
And that's how they did apprenticeships back then.
Yes.
They sold him. And so he would learn a trade. She would get paid, but also he would, it was, a different time. They were in England, and the glove maker apparently was pretty harsh. So he ran away to the Americas.
So that is
It
not
wasn't
funny.
always
That's
the
just-
most ideal
He
conditions.
stowed away on a ship.
That is kind of
And
funny.
here we are.
And here
Well,
we
after
are.
after he got settled, he moved out west, met a girl that was a Mormon, moved out west, and then, became successful, then went back, paid the guy back for his apprenticeship, come clean. But his family would never have nothing to do with him because he became Mormon.
Interesting.
And the whole becoming American didn't have anything. I guess he stowed away. Anyway, this is
Yeah.
That would've been-
interesting.
yeah.
Mom, did you know that?
I think it's on the Anderson side ancestry.
Well, the whole idea that this isn't just for kids, though, is what's getting me so excited. I
Mhm.
asked my husband for Christmas to get me a VR last year
Hmm.
because I wanted to engage with my daughter and play with her in Gorilla, whatever. And
Talk about blowing the shoulders out.
oh my goodness, she was way
Have
better.
you playing Gorilla Tag?
Yeah,
Okay.
and
I've
kids
never
make
played
fun
it. I
of
just
me.
watch him.
Kids are mean, and my own child is like, I don't even.
I don't know
That's
her.
not my mom.
I don't know her.
But I had so much fun, and I liked the activity of it. I mean, I get off there and I'm sweating.
Mhm.
So I started looking for classes I could take, dance class or lifting class or something that is I could move my body. And I was like, why are more women not doing this? I'm getting a teacher doing yoga and breathing exercises.
Mhm.
Yes.
I don't have to drive anywhere. I don't have to put makeup on.
It's
I don't
so
have to
much
do-
cheaper, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
And yet it's so my kid doesn't have to get the next greatest haircut or buy the
You got it.
expensive jeans. He's literally anyone he wants to be at school any given day
Mhm.
on this, and his imagination is his limit. And I
Yeah.
don't
Right.
think we're feeding kids imagination like we used to.
That's exactly right.
Kids aren't sitting down with a good book.
Right.
They're waiting for the movie.
Well,
and even then they're not interested. Make it a short.
I was
Yeah.
talking to
Yeah.
a guy at work the other day, we were talking about how there hasn't been we were talking about AI, and then somehow we got on Hollywood, and I was like, the future is going to be VR movies where you're going to sit down either as a family or by yourself, and you're going to say, I want the movie to have, this is the male lead, this is the female lead.
I want Brad
And
Pitt in this movie.
We can have a family movie where you sit down and you say, I want it to be action, and she wants it to be comedy romance, and the kid wants it to be sci-fi, and it can be all those, and it can at the same time highlight those parts, but the movie starts, has the same story, and ends at the same time, but a different experience for the family sitting there together watching it.
And you can be a family sitting together watching it in California, New York, Florida,
Yes.
and Texas, all at the same
In
You
time.
Germany.
can watch a
And
movie.
Germany.
We have
Yeah.
family
Shout
in
out to
Germany.
Germany.
Shout out to Germany. And shout out to Christy. Hi, Christy. She says hello. She's on our Facebook chats.
For some
So-
reason, this isn't catching up. That's okay. Read them off of your stuff.
I did.
Well, and
So please
just,
finish your
no, that's
story.
okay. Just to your point about what you can do as an adult and take all of these, because I learn a lot of things on YouTube too.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Everyone does.
oh, I can DIY this myself. This is
Mhm.
great.
Famous last words.
Famous last words.
I am a professional industrial mechanic, and there are jobs we still pull up YouTube and watch
YouTube to
videos
watch it.
before
There
we
you go.
Yeah,
swap
but
a
our,
new bearing.
Yeah.
but our kids. So to go back to these two young people who were going to pick cotton, and that's what they were
That
going to
is
do.
wild.
They were sort of plucked out to see if they could be VR developers. That's what he wanted to teach them how to do. And he put the young lady who dropped out in 8th grade, the University of Mississippi Medical Center came to him and said, we really want to create the heart for our cardiology team so that they can teach these students the heart. Where does the blood pump from this ventricle? Where does it go to the lungs? We need somebody who can develop that. So he said to this young girl who dropped out in 8th grade, he said, I need you to do this. Do you think you can? Because he had taught her the basics of how to develop. And she's like, I'll give it a shot. And so she worked hand in hand with the cardiologist to develop the heart so that the cardiology students could learn it.
An 8th grade dropout.
An 8th grade dropout. And she was so good at it that when she finished, they use it in their cardiology teams right now. And I said to him, because he's a developer and he's a tech guy. He's not an educator. And I said, I am really interested to see if you had her go and sit down and take the GED right now, having taken nothing. I mean, she got through 8th grade and all she did was develop this heart. I want to know if she can pass it without even studying. And he was like, I'm happy to pay for it to see if she could. She did. She went and took it, passed it, like blew the test away. She passed it on the first try.
So she was bored at school and didn't see a future in it.
Well, when you
too smart for school,
but also being with the University of Ole Miss, Mississippi Medical Center, she had to learn how to read on a college level because she had to do her own research on how the heart worked. She had to learn how to do math on a college level. She had to learn how to do science.
And she was going for herself instead of going to school.
Correct. Because she had to develop in it.
I want to find the person who gave these kids the idea of picking cotton for a living.
This should be a movie.
Right.
Ask them.
It should be 100%.
What an inspiration.
And her now husband, so the boy that dropped out in 9th grade, they actually got married to each other, which is really cool. He was given the University of Mississippi once again, asked if somebody could develop quantum mechanics in VR. And so he's like, okay, well, we'll give it to this kid right here and see if he can do it. Sure enough. And same thing. When took the GED, passed it on the first time because he had to learn how to read on a college level.
He had to learn how to study.
All of those things, but he wanted to do it because he was creating and developing in something like that.
There was a purpose behind
it. What made the connection for these kids? What stood out about them that made this man say, hey, why don't you help us develop? Like, were they well versed in the VR world?
No, they knew nothing about it.
Was the last ditch effort to kind of bring him back?
He was working with a gentleman who knew their teacher. And she said, I don't know why they dropped out other than they don't have a lot of support at home because their parents are working. And I think that they are far more intelligent than where their grade is.
Okay.
It's
a relationship with a teacher.
Yes. So could you just see if it would work? He's like, I am happy to try.
Wow.
And so he just taught them how to develop and they just took off. And then when they were finished, this is one of my favorite things about the story is that both Oculus and Meta came to them and offered them jobs at like $300,000 a year. And they just said, you know what? We're happy to just stay where we are. We love what we're doing in education.
So they keep building these different models.
That is correct. And they're doing very well.
And no, that's fine. They
movie.
Become administrative staff for a college, for a university.
They could, or they could just own their own company, which they do.
Oh, they started their own.
That's
thing.
what you do, right?
Yeah.
Own your own company.
And
they're phenomenal. All the colleges.
Yeah.
Yes, not
so
just
it's a really phenomenal story about what students we could learn something, but they are just going to go through the stratosphere because they're already digital natives
for it.
Well, and the that's where we're going. Unless something bad happens, that's where we're going.
Correct.
Wait, so imagine being a medical student and, having been a medical student in my college, we had one donor body that we could use. Right. And, you were lucky if you got to be first year, but I wasn't. And when I was leaving, the new donor body came in, but you could give that donor body any type of illness, any type of learning illness, and you've used no real person. And
correct.
You could change it daily. And this person had a heart issue. This person had cancer, or this person had a bone marrow problem. The education is limitless. Like you're getting hands-on I'll never forget my anatomy classes out of the respect for the person who donated their body to this. And, you learned, but once you got past the thing that killed them, you still got to learn about the veins and the blood and the organs. But when the new donor body came in, who had a totally different ailment, and it was a female versus a male, it was like, I just remember that being so
Starting
excited to learn something new.
Yeah.
This is daily learning. And my daughter wants to be a vet. She
There you
can
go.
learn how to be a vet on a snake, on a lizard, a dog, a cat,
Yeah.
a horse, a cow. There's
And
large animal vets are hard to find.
Yep. And they have all the anatomy. They have the full anatomy for all of these animals. So, if you're in your biology class and you have got to understand the difference between a marine mammal and a fish, you can actually compare those two. You can be comparing a shark and you can be comparing
Right to the cellular level.
Exactly.
In real time with what we know.
It's to scale.
Yes.
So I don't know how to explain that in this environment, but until you actually are face to face with a shark to
A great
scale,
Yeah.
it's a little overwhelming at first.
Yeah, it is.
I remember being face to face with an elephant and walking through and around and under and seeing aspects of an elephant that I will never in this lifetime be able to do, unless, of course, maybe I become a large animal or an exotic animal vet. But, that for me, I will never forget that experience. I will never forget that. I will tell you, I won't forget the difference in the size of an electron and a proton, because I've actually seen it to scale in VR. You can look at a notation on a piece of paper and it's infinitesimally small, and you can't tell the difference. But one is much larger than the other.
Brilliant.
And now I know that. I will never forget that.
Yeah.
When the whole SeaWorld drama came out about
Yes.
the killer whales and
the orcas.
they wanted to shut down SeaWorld. And I
Mhm.
was an advocate against it. And this is why I remember being a 7-year-old and falling in love with whales at SeaWorld. And I thought, if you don't give kids that experience, they won't be prone to protect them. I mean, they've got to get that experience to see them up close in zoos and things like that. Then you teach kids, wow, I want to protect the species. I think you get kids the kids that love animals tenfold love animals.
Mhm.
Watching the gorillas at the in Disney's Animal Kingdom changes a person when you see them.
Mhm.
This, you don't have to have these animals getting abused in a SeaWorld
correct.
experience. You get to have the kid interacting with them, and no animals are harmed during the making of this
Right.
interaction, and no children are
Yeah.
harmed.
And
Yeah.
Holly, you bring up a good point.
a really good
As
point.
teachers are working with certain types of students, especially students who maybe come from families where they don't have opportunities like that to travel
Yeah.
and to go places. When you're trying to teach them language, background knowledge is very important, but sometimes they don't even have a framework for what they're talking about because they've just never been exposed to it.
Yeah.
You and I, we're coming from a more affluent kind of background where we can take our kids on trips. We talk about things, they see the world. But many of our children in this nation don't have that opportunity.
Yeah, they don't even leave their own county.
They don't. They may
Right.
not. Their big excursion might be, McDonald's or something down the road like that. Going to a movie might be rare. So in VR now, as a teacher, I can take them to SeaWorld. I can take them to the ocean. They can see these things. And that background knowledge is all building all that foundational information that they can build on. And it happens faster than you think. So that's why this student, the dropout student, was able to actually get to a collegiate level of reading and building a heart because of that ability to actually get there.
It eliminates class.
You got it.
A
There you
class
go.
of a person. It eliminates.
You got that right.
You're not destined to poverty because you were raised in poverty.
Mhm.
You can visualize your
Mhm.
future.
Mhm.
You don't know if the kid next to you is raised with money or the experience necessarily
Correct.
above your own. You're
Yes.
just on that same
Yeah.
That's
playing
right.
field. You're
And we can
Yes.
close those gaps so much faster.
brilliant.
So we're
So
closing
fast.
gaps, we're leveling the playing field, and now we can actually accelerate
Yes.
And
Right.
we had a student who was reading The Hobbit, and the teacher said, well, let's just go to Middle Earth so that we can look at it. So they just went to New Zealand
There you go.
in the VR because they could. And that changed everything about that book, because they were like, oh, now I get it. And to your point about the anatomy and those things, Utah State right now, they teach their nursing classes inside of virtual reality, and they use AI. So when students put on the virtual reality headsets, they go into an emergency room, and the AI patient, they can ask them questions, what hurts? And the patient will tell them, and it's different every single time.
Amazing.
Yeah. So now they can get that kind of experience. And the really cool thing about virtual reality, I just think it's brilliant the way they do it, is they're in there and they're asking the patient what's wrong. You know, my stomach hurts or my knee hurts or whatever it is. And then they get through all the questions, and then it stops, and they can quiz them immediately about those things. So they take a quiz and they have to answer it inside of VR, and then it shoots out to their learning management system that gives them what they got in real time.
And they're
And
just
then
gone through the moment.
Yeah. And then
And
they can
so
go
it's
back
right,
to
recall.
the patient, and the patient's in AI. So they're giving them, the patient's learning, telling them, AI is learning as they go. And it's helping them. So when they go into an actual emergency room, they're like, oh, we're prepared. We understand this.
It's it. And then you have visuals. So if the patient is coming in an emergency and they can't speak, you can visually see, oh, there's a head injury. Oh, there's a chest injury. We could have internal bleeding. All these things are going through a student's mind, and they don't have a real person in front of them that's bleeding out or anything. They can make mistakes.
Correct.
And they can make victories.
Mistakes.
Yes. Yeah.
It's
and then
phenomenal.
they can turn around and go back and do it again.
Mm-hmm. And that's part of the reason why Utah State developed that, is because they wanted their nurses to have more practice before they actually went in and had to have the actual exam. So they used student engineers. It was actually student engineers at Utah State that solved this problem for the nursing program at Utah State, and leveraged this ability to feed the data back into the learning management system. I mean, it is very exciting to see what's happening, and you don't necessarily have to be a professional engineer at this point. You're doing this, as a college student.
Do you know that Tucker Carlson just had last week a surgeon on who was talking about a serious problem in this country is that right there. Surgeons that are coming out now have the rules have been changed for how many hours they need, because there's not enough surgeons in the country. So they cut back on the hours needed before they're actually allowed to do surgery on their own. This right there just potentially could help that, because though a surgeon needs to work on a real person in real time, they should have, like flight instructor, like a pilot, they should have thousands of hours in VR before they ever touch a person, I think. And I just see we're getting a better population with this opportunity. And now I think the only thing we need to really hash out is how to get a VR in every kid's hands, even those kids that can't afford it. So you've got to have it in the schools. And do you consider doing your own private school and have it be a statewide, nationwide type entity that's a franchise? Or do you get involved with the state?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, out of the gates, the reason why we chose to go the charter school route is because it is a public school entity. It is authorized, through the Utah State Board of Ed and the Utah State Charter School Board. So that school receives the same funding that a public school
for the seats, for the kids in the seats.
Correct. Now, the beauty of it is, though, because it is home-based, we do not have to sink millions of dollars into a building.
Yeah.
And so we are now able to sink all of that money into the tech, into the teachers, into the innovation.
Well, not just that,
teachers.
But if I'm Zuckerberg, I'm sitting there. Of course, I want to get Oculus in everybody's
hands.
Correct.
And they do.
It's not like okay, let me ask you this. do your quests, are they locked to where they can only use them for education
Correct.
purposes?
Yes.
Okay.
We lock out the social features of the Horizons world. If you're familiar with the meta world, they have the Horizons world. You can connect with individuals anywhere. You can create.
What about
worlds.
the games? Can they?
No,
you can't
only
get to
the
games.
only the apps that we download onto that device will they be able to
Now,
access.
what if someone signs up for your school? They've already got one of these. Can they just sign up, or do they need to get one that's?
So we'll send them one. So
we-
if they come to our school, we'll
Mhm.
send them one, even if they have one. And the reason is for the safety features.
Yes.
So
Okay.
if you can get, and let me say this, you should not be able to get outside of the school at all in there. If there's a kid who can hack that, we would really like to know that, because we'll put them in our
You wanna hire
development
him?
program.
We'll hire them.
Because
I
if
love
they're
that.
smart-
I almost said that out loud. Why? So you can hire him?
Yes, because if
Amen.
they're
Yeah.
that smart, then we want them in our development
Yeah.
program. But
Yes.
for the most part, they should not be able to hack that, and that's for safety reasons.
Honestly, it is the future.
It is
It
absolutely the future. Well, Jared, you just hit on it. So back to my, meeting Angie, and she's telling me what they're doing with virtual reality, knowing the challenges that we had trying to get this mobile app that was just a wonderful idea, and it still is, but getting people to actually adopt it was hard. But she had cracked the hardest nut in our nation to crack, which is working with these Native American families and students and serving them. And I've said, this is where it's at. This is absolutely where education has to go. If we can solve this problem, if we can educate the Native Americans on their reservation,
Mm-hmm. In their culture.
that is right there. I'm speechless by it, because, and that when I met her and she told me the
They're
story,
getting a top-notch education
This-
too, better than the
That's
public
correct.
kids in most of the
Yes.
fluent neighborhoods.
yes, I mean, we can
It's not
even
like they're
get
getting
into
A little education. They're getting a better education.
exactly, and we're opening up the world of possibilities to them. Now we can go into urban settings, gang areas that are also very challenging. You go into those inner cities, you spend any time in those inner cities, in Chicago public schools, in Houston public schools, in LA Unified,
Their money goes
the
to administration.
conditions are
not kids.
deplorable, but we can reach those kids.
Not just that, but you remove violence from that,
Yep, you've
that
absolutely done that.
childhood experience.
Mhm.
Right.
As long as the violence isn't at home. And if it is at home, you have mandatory reporters who are with that child
Correct.
in their
And
experience.
we have the ability to do
Yeah, you
this
got
in a
that right.
hybrid
It's a really
model.
good point.
There are ways that you can do this where there can be that physical aspect to it, but you're still bringing them the highest quality education. You're giving them experiences that they would never have.
You're eliminating
otherwise.
class. I love
Exactly.
that. That's one of my favorite things. That is the hardest part of being a teenager, is the judgment. And they all think all eyes are on them. Their brains tell them at all times, everyone's judging you. Everyone's judging you. It's the brain to teach them how to survive in the world. I get that.
Exactly.
This eliminates this. I mean, they still care about what they wear or what people are saying about them. No, they're worried, their worries
Mhm.
change, their
Mhm.
concerns change. It's
Mhm.
what do I get to dream
Mhm.
today? And where do we get to go today? And teachers, their focus changes. It's not on trying to get a class settled long enough to get a lesson across. It's literally their planning, their execution. It's whatever they want it to be. It's a different experience.
Mhm.
I wish this was around when I was a kid.
Oh, I
Yeah,
agree with
yeah.
you. That would have been a game changer. And, we're seeing the results. So we did a pilot program in Pomona Unified School District. We did it with 25 sixth graders.
In Arizona?
No, this was in California.
Okay.
We did it in California. And we did a science class, and we did it for about 6 weeks. The teacher was in Florida. The class was in California. They had their own teacher, but they had never done virtual reality. So they were sort of just observing as we were teaching them. And at the end of the class, we had them take the state test. We were astounded by the results. We didn't expect this.
Wow.
But what happened was 70% of those students scored 100% on the test, and 100% of them scored 90 or higher. That had never happened
Was this
before.
a regular science class? Was it an
Regular
AP?
science
Girls?
class? Girls. Yep, 6th grade.
So a girls' school, sixth grade girls, 100%.
70% of them scored 100%.
It's just the
And
Yeah,
the
we did-
ability
the
to
majority were minority students as well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This
just-
is a game changer. We don't need the Department of Ed. What we need is for ideas like this to start somewhere and branch out across the nation and then across the world, because this is more exciting to me than college, where college you do get to have these labs and you do get to do this and that, but even then you're limited.
Right.
Like DNA was coming out when we were college age and I was learning DNA in school, but now I could go into a DNA strand and I could see
Yes.
how it all works.
Yes.
And how
Yes.
this is,
You can pull it apart and you can manipulate the different segments of it. I mean,
right. And you
can-
remove one and you've got a dog
Mhm.
and people just go,
Right.
whoa, wait a minute.
Mhm,
Humans and dogs and
mhm.
crime scenes. This is phenomenal.
You
with
can
crime
see, you can
scenes.
see elements in 3D and you can combine them in the ways to make molecules, and you will have that forever. You know, just the ability to manipulate. But I think what at the heart of what we're trying to do, part of my background is that I married my wonderful husband, who's from Samoa. Education's been a big part of his family's life. He was born and raised in Samoa. His parents wanted more for their kids and started to bring them over to the United States very early in the 60s to attend school here and wanted more for them. Angie also has background being half Samoan. Her husband's Samoan as well. That's actually how we met, because we ended up in the same congregation together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Mhm.
oh,
That's
and then
how-
you guys started.
And then we started
Started
talking and
grinding.
realizing that this commonality that we had. But you know, if you've ever been to another country that's not the United States, that doesn't have what the United States has, you realize very quickly why everybody wants to come to the United States.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, flushing toilets are amazing.
Flushing toilets, hot
Right.
water,
Yeah.
you know,
Clean water.
electricity that runs through our walls and not through jerry-rigged wires that
See,
we have
Americans
set
don't
up.
know what real pain is,
They-
especially if they haven't left this country.
Mhm.
And you can go right down to the
You
border.
go right down
and
to
you will see it in Mexico. They still have streets that
just
aren't
go
even
to
paved.
the reservation.
Oh,
You will see
Can
it.
see it in
which
this
is like
country.
another country, though.
It is.
They are their own nation.
It is
Mhm.
tough. You know, that is one thing I would like to tackle. Like, one, all right, Marine Corps, you need to get your act together. The Wind Talker Memorial should not be in a Burger King. I'm going to say that outright.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It needs to have its own building. If you've been down to Kayenta,
Agreed.
you know, it's sad. And it made me, I'm a veteran. I was
Mhm.
angry. But it is I've been overseas. It's the most depressing place I've ever been. And you teaching this, first thing they need to do is they need to say, they need to get out from under the foot of the BIA so that they can
What's the
explore.
BIA?
Bureau of Indian Affairs.
Yeah, they need to be able to explore the market, build businesses down there, do things for themselves. Because right now, if they want to start a business, they've got to crawl to the BIA and say, "Are we allowed to? Can we?"
You are correct. I mean, we could go into this on
That's
its own.
podcast.
But you
Yeah.
are correct. They're industrious. They have ideas.
Mhm.
They know what they want to do, and they're tired of people
But
telling them
they're
what to
restricted.
That's
That's-
horrible.
do.
that's why-
Course.
That's why you see so many of them fall into despair, because if they have an idea, if I have an idea, I've got to go through some hoops to make it happen. They've got to go through more because they've got to
Mhm.
go through the BIA, and the BIA has to deem it culturally responsible. No, culturally responsible is if it's successful. That's it, and let them shoot their shot.
Yeah, and help their culture grow and
Yeah.
be
They're amazing people. That's true.
They are. I mean, down there, you've got, Monument Valley has some success coming out of the reservation. That's really about it.
Yeah.
It's
such a hard place to get to. It's a hard place to, and there's just a lot of issues there. But one of the things that made us the happiest is that they were very receptive to the idea.
That's fantastic.
They loved it. It's just, we have to solve some problems that we have a lot of ideas around, and we feel like we can, but this was one of the biggest ones. How do we get education there so they don't have to leave, and teachers aren't a revolving door? They can stay.
Did you
where
have
they
to
want.
go through the BIA to get approval of this?
No. So this is interesting, and I will not belabor this point so we don't have to spend a lot of time on it. But one of the things that we figured out was, if I build 200 prefabricated homes or an apartment building that sits right on the edge of the reservation but not on it, it's still in the United States, they can come off reservation for the week and go back on. And now I have all the power, all the Wi-Fi, all the broadband, all the water, and it's right there. And it can be used for them, and then they can go back on. And that's part of the way you solve. We just figured out in education that we're going to have to solve some basic human needs.
Well, and that's only a temporary thing, because once you get these kids the inspiration, they'll solve their needs on the reservation.
100%.
And that's the key. You give them these tools, they will make their reservation.
100%.
They'll light it up. They'll bring water to it.
Well, the younger will come up and say, we're done with this old ways.
Well, they won't have to say.
We need to build our reservation up to what it's worthy of being.
The tribe isn't stopping it. And the BIA isn't stopping, like electricity getting there.
The BIA made up of different tribe leaders?
Generally, it's a white guy that runs it. But
really?
Yes. What's stopping it is you've got this huge geographical area that when the power company looks at it, they're looking at a calorie expenditure that is huge to get little return. Whereas here, they deliver power to here. We're compact, fewer lines they got to run. They're literally running as much copper as they do to service all of Tooele to get just my neighborhood.
Right. And it's so, because the plateaus go up, down, up, down, up. Like one of the biggest issues about bringing broadband, until Starlink fixed that problem, one of the issues was how do you have to get it at the highest point, but where is the highest point? And then you have to point it downward. And how do you get that?
And that highest point is just the highest point for 2 miles.
Exactly.
And then there's another equally high
right.
point.
It is such a problematic place.
I think the parents of these kids, I just think of being a mother and knowing that I've got to get my kid 2 hours away to educate them and hope for a better life. All these parents have,
and that's 2 hours away
hope.
On a dirt road. It's not like it's 2 hours away on freeway.
And not being able to afford even the travel of it, and don't want to give my kid up for weeks at a time so they can be educated.
Yeah.
This is brilliant.
Well, and here's the interesting thing about the Four Corners. There are 3 areas in this country that are generational poverty for over 30 years. Appalachia is one of them. The Mississippi Delta is the other, but the poorest of all of them is the Four Corners.
The poorest on, I would argue, probably the poorest on this whole continent. Like they make the poorest part of Mexico look wealthy.
It is. That's exactly right. And what's interesting is that the grid extends to Appalachia and it extends to the Mississippi Delta. Whether you can afford it or not is completely another thing. So most of the time they don't have power because they just can't afford it. It does not extend to our Navajo friends. And so it's not even like you can, if you wanted to turn on the light, you could just pay your power bill and turn it on. You can't even get it.
It's not there. So
I just feel like Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, we should all be figuring this out together.
And Arizona is the biggest part. Yeah.
This feels painful to me to think of being a mother and think, my gosh, my kid is destined to live the life I'm living, and there's no I mean, this is 2025 and I don't have running water.
Right.
That's why most of them leave.
It's why we have a big vision. What we're doing right now is using the mechanisms in place.
Yeah.
Education is for everybody. We already know we're spending money to educate these students. They come into the districts and we have that head count. That's money that's there for them that we can use to do a model like this. So we had to start somewhere, which
Brilliant.
is starting a charter school. And we have to give a huge shout out to the Utah State Charter School Board,
Oh yeah.
For
Mhm.
seeing the
who
vision.
saw the vision, wants the innovation, went out on a limb, because there's only one other school doing this, which is the school in Florida, and our pilots in Arizona and California were the first in the
Yeah.
nation. This is very, very new. Very, very new. But we had to do something as an incubator to prove the point. We knew we had to have the data. Everybody wants the
Absolutely.
data. So
And this is traceable data,
it
unlike
is
what we're using now.
traceable data.
We
Absolutely.
just judge by graduation levels
Yes,
right now,
yes.
or
Such a
test
good
scores.
Yeah.
This is
Right.
data that you're seeing in real time.
Yes.
Correct.
But now we
Such a
have
good
this
point.
charter in Utah. We can service students on the reservation that can be part of it. And that's part of the big plan. Our hope, Holly, just like yours, is that this is actually a change agent.
Absolutely.
That it can actually change the way that education is funded. It can change the way that education is viewed, that it flips it on its head.
Yeah, we're trying to disrupt it.
And let me just say this.
I would
AI
say it
is
flips it off
disrupting
its head.
AI is
Absolutely.
disrupting education right now.
Absolutely.
So if our traditional schools do not pivot, they're going to be fighting. They're going to be like swimming upstream against the AI.
And they're going to be kicking kids out that are going to be a step behind. Jordan has a comment
Yes.
on there. He says, we need to get phones out of the classroom. And I argued on this show many times.
I agree.
No,
Oh, you want them in there?
the schools need to start using the very phone in their hand.
They are, though. Here's the problem. Right now, you can turn my kid doesn't have a phone, and I'm not buying him one. And he's 15 and he's
Good
mad.
for you.
But I'm just not doing
I'm in
it.
your camp.
Good
And
job.
So, but here's the thing. Utah law has been passed now. So phones will be banned. That's as of session. To our county's been doing it this year, banning phones. Well, since January. So
Mm-hmm.
kids go into school and they have to put their phone in a packet up front, whatever. My concern was security. Like if there's something happening in the school, I want my kid to be able to call me. He has a watch. They allow watches as long as you're not interacting with it other than this. So I get it. But at the same time, teachers don't like the disruption that's in a phone. I get that. But at the same time, the teacher is saying, turn your assignment in via phone by emailing me, take a picture of your assignment and emailing it to me. And I'm like, what about the kid who doesn't
issue
have
with
a phone?
The issue with the phone is that they have access to everything on it.
That's correct.
So what they're doing is they're texting one another, they're snapping one another, they're doing everything except paying attention to what's happening in the class.
You beat that with that. What's it called? Something monkey.
Well, and this, I think,
but like at my work, when we have our
Mhm.
safety trainings, we do it on our cell phones. But the teacher would build the quiz and you would log into the quiz on your phone.
Mhm.
Kids can't afford phones.
And then your
Not
phone's
everyone.
occupied, and they don't have to do it on the phone, but you occupy the phone. We've got technologies here. You guys are doing that right now. It's here. The phone is here. The phone is an extension of us. How many adults do you know right now could leave their house without their phone and make it through the day?
Yeah, there's probably zero. And to your point, our problem isn't actually our phones or technology. Our problem is the antiquated way in which we teach.
That's my point.
Don't
front
bore
of
the
somebody
kids.
and then just making them sit in a
Mhm.
desk, that we did that 100 years ago.
Yep.
It does not work.
Kids aren't learning like
and
that.
it's not
they
supported by the
hate it.
data. The data does not support that model.
And
That's
the
correct.
data is what is lacking, because we sit there and watch 11 billion of our tax dollars go into education, or 6 billion, excuse me. And our graduation rates go up 11%, and we
Mhm.
pat each other on the back, and I'm 11%. Why are all our children not graduating if that's in
Yeah,
fact
but
what they want to do?
But our education
and why
levels
aren't they
is
graduating with ability to read English, to read well, and
Right.
with math
Express
skills
yourself.
and understanding a bit of history and civics so they can function in a real world? Our kids are getting out of school, graduating, but they can't read.
well, I'm seeing the future that'll be a VR schools. It'll be a VR education system where kids will, they'll compete to get into these best classes, and they'll compete not by money.
Teachers
Well,
definitely. will
and
compete.
and that'll be the hard part. We got to try to keep money out of it. Otherwise, we'll just cycle into the same thing. But they'll compete through merit to get into that teacher's class. But other than that, you'll pick and choose. There won't be a school you're signed into. There'll be lots of different VR classes out there on offer. And the kid will say to his folks, I want to study this. And okay, here's an open classroom, whatever, and they'll study that. And we won't have these. We'll have the ability to not have set timelines for education. Like you can take, instead of 7 periods just through the winter and fall, you can take 3 periods in the winter and fall and 3 periods through the summer. You can keep up on stuff like that.
You can start school at 10 a.m. instead of 7 or 8.
Well, the Tiger moms, they don't want their kid to lose any of those math skills through the summer. They'll keep them grinding. You'll have a kid that's able to test into that. But
you're going to be gazillionaires. This is endless.
Well, money. You really do have to talk about the money.
Yes, that's why we've got 13 minutes.
Let me say this: we do want to be zillionaires, but what's wrong? What's wrong with having schools operate more like a business would in the free market?
Efficiency.
If you have to compete,
You're
right?
Speaking my language.
Now we're talking. I don't have a problem with teachers making an excellent salary. If there is a way that we can have the best teachers and they can get compensated, just like a meta programmer,
Absolutely.
some of them making 6 figures, very high 6 figures, and you're a developer. What's wrong with a teacher making that kind of money? It would change the game, right?
Absolutely.
So again,
more people would go into teaching as an education and not stop
and
in the
quality
middle of college.
People. I'm going to say something.
And you have to compete. If our school didn't do well and kids weren't achieving and they came out dumber than they entered, what would happen to our school? We'd close our doors.
Yeah.
You would not be able to continue operating a school that did not perform. Your product is how your students are performing.
And that's the problem. We don't collect the data in an efficient way that you and I can sit down as taxpayers and as mothers and go, is this school right for my child? Is this school producing bright young minds that are college ready or tech ready to go into a field of study? Why does my kid have to take 2 extra credits that they don't give him any points or anything when he could be doing what he loves and learning something that he loves? Why are we doing everything the exact same way for the exact same, more money, and no results are changing? That's literally insanity.
Well,
you guys are doing something
we'll
new,
talk about the
innovative.
Education system, according to Horace Mann, was to make soldiers and factory workers, but
we can't anymore because AI is going to take those jobs.
That's what it's for.
And our kids have to be prepared
for
that world.
We have 10 minutes. So
10 minutes.
Now's the most important part of the show. So if someone was going to, let's put it in a circumstance where, say someone's got a teenage kid who is flunking out of high school and says, this is my last chance. How do they sign up? How much does it cost? Like, what's the out of pocket? Can someone in Tooele do it? First of all,
it's free.
It's free.
It doesn't cost them anything.
That is my favorite F word.
Can they? It's my second favorite F word.
Fudge is your first.
Exactly.
Everyone loves fudge.
It is free because it's a charter school, so it's funded by the state.
Okay.
And if you just go to our website, vhcsut.org, that's how you sign up. And
Have you talked to Matt Hymas about this?
We have.
Matt Hymas, yes.
Is he supportive?
Oh, yes.
Yes, yes.
Because our
Yes.
kids both are under his charter.
Executive director.
And
Yep.
he's huge proponent of the charter schools. And I
Yes.
could see him being, and he's also our elected board member here for Tooele County. So
He's great.
I'm
He's
curious what
fantastic.
his thoughts are. This has to blow his mind as a math teacher. You're getting data, you're getting learning, and you're eliminating class of, kids are going in on the exact same level playing field.
Yes.
They are.
Yeah. We've had great conversations
What's
with
the
Matt
age?
Hymas.
So over grade 3.
So
Over
we are
fourth
opening
grade.
initially with grades 4 through 8.
4 through 8, no high school yet.
August of
Not
20,
yet.
Not yet. Each year we will add the upper grades. So eventually by year 5, we will be all the way through 12th grade. We are adding high school.
And after this year one, sorry to interrupt you,
Yes.
but after year one, if we can see that we have an influx of high school students, we'll go back to the state charter board and open it all the way up.
Mhm.
One
This is
thing that I
brilliant.
found out recently is that our alternative school here, the one that the
Mhm.
kids who get kicked
Mhm.
out of, is packed for 2 years. So if a kid gets kicked out in their sophomore year, that kid essentially dropped out.
Right.
Credit recovery.
There's
not an option.
and that's the big thing. And a lot of kids are getting kicked out because they're looking at them
We know.
a couple years and they're like, there's no way you can get there.
Sad.
And then the alternative schools, well, that kid's done.
And yet you just don't
So
know if
all
you've
I'm
tapped
saying
into the
is-
kid in the right way.
Is that
It-
something in the future?
yes.
Something you're
Oh,
working on?
100%.
100%.
That's how we actually wanted to start, is to
yes.
go after those kids in the beginning. And then we just realized from a charter standpoint, it might be easier to catch them at 4 through 8. But if we can see that we're getting a lot of interest in that area, we'll open it all the way up.
Mount Hymas wants the high school of Excelsior. Why can't we just start the high school using VR in a small room at the
There you go.
junior
You
high?
can.
We
and
can.
all the high schoolers
We
can
can.
go to high school through
We can.
Excelsior.
And they should do that.
Absolutely. They don't have to build a building.
That's correct.
Right.
Save a lot of money.
Hear me, Matt?
And then they just
We're
stay
coming
at
for
home.
you.
I mean, these are kids that are old enough to manage to feed themselves.
Oh, of
You
course.
know?
Oh, of course.
So
Yes.
they can just stay at home
Yes.
I
and
think high schoolers would be brilliant.
and then
Mhm.
and then you can have, I mean, if the parent's home, then there's that. If the parent's not home, the parent from their job can go through you guys to get access on their phone to make sure
Yeah.
little Timmy's showing up and putting on his headset.
But we
and-
can tell if they're showing up, so we'd let the parents know.
yeah. So
Mhm.
I mean, they can be a controlled environment.
Applications are endless.
Seriously, this is, and I've talked about many times that I want to see the way we do school today done away with.
Yeah.
I want to
Thank
see
you.
us move. I want to see us one.
It's
I
not
think
serving
No.
students.
if we're going to stay in this kind of model, we need to do away with big schools. It needs to be
Mhm.
every neighborhood has a small school,
Awesome.
controllable environment.
Focused on learning.
Mhm.
And where the kids are more involved with the teaching aspect like it used to be. That's proven to help a fourth grader if that fourth grader spends some time helping the third grader,
Mhm.
Yeah.
because
Yep.
they're
Yeah.
learning to be a
Yes.
teacher. They're committing their learning to concrete as they go along and
Now, this
repeat
is
it.
what people need to do. If they're at all interested, they need to get into the lottery. We're running the lottery on March 20th,
And what grades are you?
4th through 8th. So if your student is going to be in 4th through 8th grade in the fall in 2025,
Okay, school year
they-
2025.
and you want them to be in the school, they have to go to the website and they need to click apply now. So if you go back to the homepage,
Yep.
there is an apply now button. That's what they need to do. They need to give us their information. It's right there. They'll fill out a brief form, and that will allow us to put them in the lottery. We run that on March 20th. If there are spots available after that, enrollment will be happening consistently. It's not that you can't get in after the 20th. It's just that if you want to secure your spot, probably the best chance is to do it on the 20th.
You want to get in the lottery.
You want to get in the lottery. But of course, if we have spots available, we're going to continue to enroll students. So you need to let us know
Right.
if this is something that you're interested in.
How do I get you guys to do a class at the Patriot Camp where one of the rotations is the VR
we would love to do
experience?
it.
We would love to
Do
be
you guys
at the
have like a
Patriot
set of like
Camp.
June
We do.
2nd.
like 20
June
VRs you can
2nd.
come
We
in?
do.
We
and-
Yeah,
do.
we do.
Let me
Yep.
tell you what we've done. We have been having so much fun at the STEM Fest around the state. And if you're familiar with the big STEM Fest that happened back in September, I think it was,
Uh-huh.
we put 750 kids into VR over 2 days.
In the
Ooh.
International Space Station.
In
Wow.
the
Super
International
cool.
Space
And you guys-
Station.
And you guys I would consider you guys a STEM charter school.
Absolutely.
Oh, of course.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yes.
The Holly we can handle the
You hear
300
that, Colette?
kids
Okay,
at Patriot
June
Camp.
2nd, we're
June
doing
2nd.
Patriot Camp, and go check out
Mhm.
Patriot Camps of America, Tooele. We are doing June 2nd through the 6th. And we want your kid, if you want them to learn about history of the founding, it's a nonpartisan, it's absolutely amazing experience. It's team building, it's patriotic, it's about the founding. And it gives kids a love of self, a love of their country, and hopefully it creates our young leaders for the future. And this, I mean, I don't know if you talked to Colette about this.
We have actually.
Okay.
We're in discussions about this.
This is what we need. Just one of the rotations
Yes,
where we
just
throw
one of
this
the
on. This
rotations.
changes everything.
Wouldn't
we
it
would
be
love
wonderful if they were able to go to the Underground Railroad?
Absolutely.
Mm.
I mean,
You know?
Carrie, though, she's one of our actors and she's phenomenal. And she's played the role of that before.
Of Harriet Tubman.
Harriet Tubman, she's phenomenal. And yes, we do recognize all aspects of the history and the founding. People are mean on Facebook about Patriot Camp. They have this stereotype of what it is.
They have a misconception about what it is.
Yeah, but this
But I can tell you, my
is
son's
so
been there
in-depth.
for 2 years. He loves it. He's planning on it again.
Oh, he's such a great kid.
He's learned so much about the founding. I have learned so much about the founding of this country and the importance of the Constitution.
Tell me, your kid, is he an 8th?
No, he's a 4th grader. He's going to be 5th grade next
So
year.
are you gonna put him
Yes,
in
he's
this program,
enrolled
the
in our
VR?
school.
Oh,
Yes.
he's so excited.
Yes, he is.
And he gets to do VR.
He's
school.
going to do VR.
Yes.
School.
And
So this is
I mean, that's-
exciting.
He's our school ambassador. I should have brought his card.
It really
today.
is. He has his own card.
He has his own
and
business
Oh, really?
card.
He
and
does.
His name is Dane. We got to give a shout out to
Hi,
Dane.
Dane. Well, I thought for some reason that you said you were going to keep him at Excelsior.
Well, the thought was, I'm so busy, Holly.
Yeah.
We're traveling a lot.
You're building
Utah's
a
not
huge
the only
company.
state where we're doing this,
And
and
that's-
so so that's hard. It's home based.
Are you hiring?
Oh,
We are.
our website.
Seriously?
Our website
Yeah,
has
we
our
are.
jobs. up.
Yes, we seriously
We
are.
need teachers. We need instructional assistants.
Yes.
What's wonderful about VR is we can have as many rooms and as many groups as we need. Our ratios are low.
People can work from home.
People are
Correct.
working from home.
This
Our
is my
student
dream
to teacher
job.
ratio is low. You would think, we can do more kids. No, we want a lower ratio because we know that teacher interaction makes it individualized and personalized. So all of our jobs are posted on the vhcsut.org.
Are you tracking data in real time? So
Yes.
Yes.
This is politicians. Pay attention. This is why I say you'll be gazillionaires. Whether your money is it's not your intent, and I know that about you. But
You'll be Bitcoinaires.
every single person has this opportunity. Every politician should be looking at this because this is actual numbers you can bring back to people and show them.
Correct.
This is actual, it's in the times. Your kid wants this. And for your creative kids, this is a dream. For your binary, science/software kids, a dream. And there's kids out there that don't know they want this until they have it in their hands. Like the story you told.
Yeah.
Till you open this part of their minds, they have no idea this is the potential, and they could actually learn what they want to be so much sooner if they get to experiment in all these aspects of life.
And to your point, I know our time's done, but to your point, this is so bipartisan. Everything about
Yes.
it is
Well,
should
yeah.
absolutely appeal to Republicans and Democrats and independents
It's
and
parents.
libertarians and anybody else, because it brings in every aspect that you can think of. It gives you a sense of purpose, a sense of community, a sense of everything you want. So it
And
really is pretty amazing.
It's on a charter right now,
It's on
and
a
that's
charter
the
right
way
now.
the standard.
Mhm.
So you're still following the levels of education required
State
to be a
core,
grade.
yeah.
We
All
are
state.
completely aligned to the Utah core.
Correct.
And then I'm curious, when you get into high school, if by chance kids can do an accelerated program
They
where
absolutely can.
see what
Our theory, I will
so
tell you
many
this.
kids would
Our
bypass
theory,
that.
which is sort of what you were talking about, is that you can actually do 2 grades in one, because it's
It's
such a deep
accelerated.
dive and it moves
It
so
is
quickly
accelerated.
that you could actually get 2 years in one.
Well,
And then-
it's going to get hard on what you'll find, especially when you break into high schools. It'll be hard on a teacher to keep up with instructing students. It's gonna you may have to like get 2 teachers and Chat GPT and Gronk all in there
but you could
grinding out the
match-
classes, because the kids are going to learn this. You think back to Boy Scouts. I could tell a kid all day long how to start a fire, but I get them out there starting it, and they're going to learn how.
Yeah.
But if they've just got to recite something to me, it's not going to function.
Right.
But can't you match the student to the teacher at this point? I mean, you
You could,
literally,
yeah.
like in Excelsior, my child goes to the classroom that matches her level instead of
Exactly.
sitting in a classroom and getting bored. She's on this level of vocab and this level of
Yep.
math and this level of reading or whatever it is.
Mhm.
And it's matching the student
That
based
is
on their
that's the
needs.
entire
Correct.
intent, that they are going to be at their challenge level. So if we're accelerated, we're going to be accelerated. If we have learning needs, we have some gaps, we're going to be able to be working on that and
Teaching at
closing
their
those
level.
gaps. We know we're going to have kids in 4th grade that come in and they are going to need, sadly, 1st and 2nd grade level instruction to make
And-
up those gaps.
And those kids could sit in on that class
Yeah,
without any embarrassment.
Correct.
absolutely.
You got it.
Without any
And if our theory
embarrassment.
is correct, they'll be caught up and
will catch
gone
up.
forward
Yeah.
by the end of the
We're
year.
Yeah,
accelerating.
what's that
Accelerating.
show Billy Madison it?
That's just like what Matt Hymas's standards were when he wanted to do Excelsior. That's why I chose Excelsior. And I have been so happy because
And
of
we've
it.
been very happy there too. Mhm.
You're following the child based on their level
Mhm.
and not the other way around.
Mhm.
It's not a cookie cutter option like
Mhm.
other
Right.
public schools are doing.
Exactly.
And as a mom who had the nightmare of trying to homeschool her kid and realized I'm not built for that. I'm not built
Me
for
Me
it.
neither. And I'm an educator.
Honey, I'm not doing that.
I'm an
Our friend
educator.
Colette is brilliant at it, but they've got
Absolutely.
they've got a collective of women and
Mhm.
families
Mhm.
that are doing it. This is just saying, hey, you don't have to be built for it. You just
Right.
have to be ready for the schedule. Your
Mhm.
child has to learn schedule to be on time, just like everything else. They have to learn to be polite,
Mhm.
listen to the teacher.
Yep.
And then you're
And
still
they're gonna have
learning
fun.
all this stuff. They're gonna have fun.
Mhm.
They're going to love
Mhm.
it. Yeah.
I can't even wait for this.
I'm
to the
excited to see
website,
what you guys
folks.
bring up for recess. That gorilla tag, that's how you wipe a kid out.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
exhausting.
And I
What
watch
do they
them.
want to do for recess today? And they can do it.
And they can branch off and do it with a different
Right.
school. Maybe they make friends with a
yeah.
with
exactly.
a class they're not used
Yeah.
to, but that's the group that likes to play whatever game they're
Mhm.
playing.
Yeah.
And what about schedule? Do you have to start at a certain time and finish at a certain time?
We do have it. We do have it at a certain time so that they're all in there.
And so they're with the teacher.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah,
synchronous.
Because it's synchronous.
Right.
You're
So,
going in
yeah.
together.
And
Yeah.
could you do summers if you wanted to?
Oh,
Absolutely.
100%.
Well,
You could
I'm
do year
certain
round.
I'm certain that we will be, just like a regular school does summer school. There's going to be needs for summer academies for sure.
I just could see what he's saying is, what if your kid wants to
Or if they want to accelerate,
Accelerate
or
their
they want,
learning.
or they want to focus in a certain area and do a coding camp or something like that. That's absolutely. We also intend to have things for families, for parents.
Yes.
I love
This
it.
That's
is
good.
not just
Oh,
for the kids. I mean, but we can do
So-
financial literacy. We
Exactly.
can do positive parenting, addiction
Yes.
recovery.
Yes.
How, as a parent, if I'm a parent and I am in a, hourly paying job. How do I get out of that? I want more for myself.
Yeah.
I want
Correct.
more for my family.
I want to be able to retire someday.
I want to
You got it.
retire.
Oh, that's a damn.
All
That
of
doesn't
that,
happen anymore, guys.
It is
Do you guys,
awful.
can you even imagine my kids in health right now? This child development, they get to see the child in the womb at 8 weeks, 6 weeks,
Mhm,
whatever, and they're
mhm.
watching it develop.
Mhm.
And then they get, you know how you used to take care of the egg when you were in high school and you had to
We've used this analogy so
I
many
mean,
times already.
You've got
We
a
love
crying
the egg.
baby that
Right.
you've
Yes.
got to take care of, a
Yes.
real baby, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And you're teaching children.
Mhm.
That changes aspects of teen pregnancy. It changes all kinds of things
Right.
in the society. What if people want to invest in this? Are you taking investors?
Yes.
Are you looking for are you selling percentages? Are you how does that work for
I'm going to
people
let
out
Angie.
there?
I'm going to let Angie address our investment questions.
We do talk to investors. Right now, we haven't really talked about selling percentages, but
Let's explain a little bit. So we have Virtual Horizons Charter School is a nonprofit entity, right, that is funded through state funding.
Okay, so you're taking donations.
So
Correct.
that can receive donations. Now, what Angie and I did, along with a few other partners, the first thing we did was we established a for-profit company called Oasis XRE.
Good.
Okay. So we have a for-profit entity that is an educational service provider. Okay?
But it's not public yet.
It is
It's not
correct.
traded.
No,
It is not.
it is not. It is an entity that can deliver this level of education to any public, private entity that wants it. So oasisxre.com does have clients in other parts of the country. For example, we are working with an alternative high school in Northern California with students in credit recovery where they are not working in the normal environment. This is their last ditch effort to get their high school degree, and they've brought VR into that program. Okay, so this is Oasis XRE. That would be the entity where we would talk about investment. Oasis allows us to go anywhere in the world and
Right.
deliver this kind of education. That is our whole goal. We have figured out the technology. We have figured out the
Is
teachers.
it all protected? And
it is all
it's all
protected.
private. It's yours.
It's
You
ours.
own it.
We
Correct.
own it. It is our IP. It is Angie's, to give credit where credit is due, it is
That's nice.
Angie's brainchild that she started working on in 2015.
And you live in our little county.
oh, that's so nice.
Right
of you.
here
Thank
in
you.
Tooele
Thank
County.
you.
I know.
Big
isn't it
stuff
so
happens
cool?
out of this
You told
county.
me It
I
does.
really,
You know-
I feel it really does.
It really does.
I'll tell you, the airport, the dumb history, but the airstrips for the United States Postal Service were laid out by a guy from here, from Grantsville.
Awesome.
The way salt is harvested was invented here in Grantsville. Tooele County is an amazing place. It's
I mean, it really
Yeah,
is.
don't
quite
tell
secret.
anyone.
No,
Yeah.
yeah.
So-
Let's keep
You
it on
didn't
the
hear any
down
of
low.
that.
So would this work, like say a student signed on to this credit recovery, would that be something they grind through these classes, then maybe they can present these to their school and say, look,
So we work with schools
We
to
work with schools
The
to
to
schools
deliver
give
would
credit.
go into the
The
business.
Yes.
the schools become our client. If
we
you
need to
will.
get Tooele High School on this.
We absolutely
Every
need
high
to
Yesterday.
get-
no question about
Peak,
it.
Tooele High School.
Blue Peak needs this because
Yes.
their building doesn't have capacity. Their program doesn't have capacity. This adds all of the capacity, unlimited capacity for them to serve students where the traditional environment's not working.
Mhm.
I cannot tell you how many of my friends right here in Tooele County have kids in high school. And it doesn't matter what high school it is in the county. They cannot make their kid go to class. The kid is disengaged. They are not interested.
The school
You
can't do anything.
The school can't
the
do
law
anything.
can't do anything.
They're driving them
Well,
to
the law
school.
quit
They-
doing stuff.
They cannot do
COVID
it.
killed our kids, especially our
Yes, it
boys.
did.
Amen.
COVID,
Could
the
not agree more.
Amen.
government's response to COVID have destroyed the young men in this country, and it's criminal what they've done.
How
And so
Do we help?
so our company Oasis can go into other entities where our school is the school.
entity.
It is the entity.
So do
Okay.
schools pay you?
Yes. So
to come
there's
in?
yes. So there's
Correct.
a fee.
Gotcha.
But we can become the school for that school.
Right.
And that's when it works best. Remember, we were talking about how schools are doing labs.
Yeah.
That's an okay way to do it, but it's not the way to change and make the impact that it can have.
Right.
Okay. It makes the impact when it's the school, when it is the program, when it is the way. That is why we started Oasis, and we said we would always have the teachers. We would always provide the teacher.
I can't imagine a teacher not wanting to run to this, because I
We
can
have
only
teachers.
imagine.
I'm going to tell you, we have teachers. If you want to teach for us, you need to tell us now, because our spots are filling, because we have not had to recruit.
Not one.
I have no
They
doubt.
have come to
They just have
us
to hear
and
about it.
said,
Right.
can we teach for
And
you?
if you're a good teacher and you know who you are, you make an impact on your students.
Yes.
You're seeing them light up when you're teaching the
Mhm.
curriculum that you've put together for that
Mhm.
day. You
Mhm.
know you're special. Get in touch with these folks, because teachers don't do it for money. We know that. But why not, if there's an opportunity for them
Mhm.
someday to really make good money doing it, and also getting to produce a better populace for our future? I just, everyone wins here. I
Yeah,
want
that's
to
the way
be
we
in
see
on
it.
this. I
They
wish I
can.
had money to throw at you and join you on this. But maybe in the meantime, can people talk to schools? Have you been talking? Do you talk to districts?
Yes.
Or do you
We
go
do.
into
Yes.
individual
Mhm.
schools?
No, we
Yes.
talk to districts.
Districts
Districts
and
is the
schools,
easiest
but
way to get in.
districts, yes.
And how about the politicians here in the state? Have you sat down with the governor?
We have years, and Kim doesn't even know this. We did actually do something with Governor Cox once. He loved it. He was like, and what he said was this. I thought this was really interesting, because I thought, oh, good, you get it. He said, oh, this would be perfect in the rural areas. And
Yeah.
I said,
It's true.
Yes,
And
it
he was
would.
born and raised
Like
in the rural
Calio.
areas.
Exactly right.
Think about Calio.
right.
You know, you got Calio, Ibapa,
Mhm.
all that, ISEPA, you know, all that.
Yes.
This is an offering that they can give to those kids where, you know, maybe they don't want to drive their kid to Dugway.
Right.
Correct.
So
You know,
in Ibapa, for example, they wouldn't have to drive their kid off the
No.
reservation at
No.
all,
No.
because they've
No,
got
right.
Correct.
it.
Yes, because
access.
as part of, and we should have mentioned this, if a family is in need and needs the Wi-Fi,
We'll give them the
we'll
Wi-Fi.
give them the Wi-Fi.
Mm.
So they're getting the headset, they're getting the computer, they're getting Wi-Fi, if
Wi-Fi.
they
That's the
need it.
nonprofit.
That's
Correct.
the nonprofit piece
can
of it.
donate to the business.
Yes.
And the people can donate to
Yeah.
the nonprofit and get
Yeah.
and that
Yes.
Wi-Fi can help
Genius.
out the whole family.
Correct.
Correct. It'll
And
help
so
out the
that's
whole
a
family.
boost. That's a
Mhm.
boost for
Yeah.
a family that's in need.
In the Arizona model, when they did this during COVID, 120 of those students had to go onto the reservation.
Yeah.
So they received the Wi-Fi, and they were able to do it successfully from their homes on the reservation.
amazing.
Seriously.
It just changed their whole lives.
It changed the game.
and
Well,
their
and you helped
parents.
out the family.
And you know, those teachers that taught in that, they are so excited to have this offered again.
Yeah, I
Oh,
bet.
They were coming out of the
They
woodwork. They were
were.
so, and we were not quite ready yet. So, and they kept calling us.
Mhm.
Are you guys
Yes.
up
And
and
they
running
have
yet? Are you up and running?
students.
We're like,
There's-
give us a minute.
Their students are like, when are we going to have VR again, Miss
Yeah.
Bianca? You know, when are we going to
Oh,
have VR
yes.
again? So, the flywheel is starting. Let's put it that way.
Please allow me,
Thank
if I
you,
can,
Holly.
any way to help and
Yeah.
be
Thank
with you
you.
on this ride, because this is
Holly, we would love
just
that.
be
And
amazing
Jared,
to
thank
watch.
you.
Without question, we would love that. Thank you.
I
Yeah.
am
No,
excited.
this
we
is-
so much.
we know we have some of the answers, but we don't have all of the answers, and we're just willing to go out there and try something new. And you know, you're going to get beat up,
Sure.
and it has not been a completely easy road, but we're willing to have anybody join us that catches the vision and that can help us further the cause, because that, at the end of the day, we want this in the hands of as many families as possible.
This is what I said in the beginning about the intent. You two have pure intentions here. And that's something I just know about you anyway. But to meet you, and
Thank you.
I mean, you know that you love the kids. whether you make $1, whether you make multiple millions. I know you're spending probably a lot of your own money and a lot of your time, but this should be huge. And if you own the properties and all of that, this should be huge. So I think.
Thank you so much.
And Michael, it's already launched. These guys are already launched.
She's
and
talking
they're
to
on
her
state school
her
board
husband
already
right now.
knows about them in their charter.
Well,
So,
I want to get after Tooele High School like tomorrow.
Stansbury High School for me.
I want to ask them because they have a lot of these young men are. We
need to get them in.
I'm telling you, in 10 years.
And not all kids are sports kids.
Guys, we have
all
the
this
we
money
have
goes
the
to
more
sports.
or not.
We
Yes.
have the
Yes.
distribution set up.
In 10
Meta
years,
knows about this.
we're
Go
going to
ahead.
see it nationally, the problem. In 10 years,
we
we're
already
going
are.
to see an underemployment of young men because of this issue that our government created.
We're seeing it now in college.
No, we're going
with
to
dropouts and stuff.
we're going to see young ladies. I mean, there's already a crisis. Young ladies can't find suitable husbands. And we're building a wasteland that is going to self-perpetuate. We're going to have a demographics collapse from what we're
Not
doing.
anymore. I don't know why you're gloom and doom, and we've got the answer right here.
Well,
Thank you.
And there's data that's going to be behind it. So politicians can get behind this and talk to their constituents and say, listen, this is showing that this is a really great opportunity for the kid. Like we were talking all the time. Why do high schools spend millions and hundreds of millions on a new high school? And the education hasn't gotten any better.
it's gotten
But
a
the
little
football
worse.
team is awesome. Yay, we love football.
Mhm.
But what if your kid doesn't care about sports? Your kid's an artist. Your kid's a math kid. Your kid's a science kid. Your kid's a drama kid. They need this, and the money needs to focus on this. You don't have to get into the arts and music.
No.
You can have all the art and music you want. You can tailor it to the child.
Yep.
This is
allows
huge.
school districts to scale.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to build a new building.
Absolutely.
And let me say this to your point. Like there are more students who don't play sports than do play sports.
Yes.
But when you take out the expense of a building, you now have more money for all of the things you're talking about. But ironically enough, you have more money for sports.
It's
Yes.
true.
You can actually do better
Okay.
in terms of the kids who do play the sports, and then still do just as well for the kids who are in art or are in music or are in musical theater.
The theater would be the coolest because
Ugh,
they put on a play that the family can sit down at the TV and watch. Grandma, wherever, can sit
Grandma
and
in
watch
North
them do the
Carolina
play.
can
your
watch.
costume is whatever you choose.
Yeah,
Your
right.
well,
avatar.
it's. I mean, they can put on. It can be the clunkiest play, just like you want to see when you go to a third grade play. You want to see it awful,
But it's an animation.
Right.
but
Yeah.
it's them putting it on. It's their voice. It's their
Ideas.
gestures, and eventually there would be no reason why when they put on a play it can't be done where the family joins on and it's their kid up
Correct.
there.
So my husband and I, we talked about this so much, and I know he took it around to his friends and other parents, and he was talking about this a lot today.
Great.
And he said, I've spoke about this. The only negative feedback I've gotten is kids need social interaction.
Yes.
Correct.
Other than that,
Yep.
amazing product.
Yes.
So I think they're getting the social interaction with their peers just on a VR level.
They
Right.
are. And the way that we've structured it is that, yes, it is amazing how much socialization you can get inside of virtual reality.
Well, that's
Just-
where kids are
But-
now.
Yes, but we've also put an aspect in that we will meet. I think we said like once a
We're going
month
to be meeting together. Yes.
as a group in real life.
As a classroom.
So what the way
For
that we
the
have,
lab.
well, the way
You
we've
got it.
structured it is regionally in Utah, because you could be a fourth grader in Brigham City and a fourth grader in St. George in the same classroom.
right.
But we're going to have pockets of students in the different regions of Utah. So they would meet more regionally, right? So that they're not having to drive long distances to be together, or teachers are not having to drive long distances together. It's the same way we're going to be delivering the orientation an initial training. And when we have to do testing, we still do have to do testing. That's all done regionally. So everybody in, Cache
person.
County,
in a testing center type.
in a testing center. So everybody in
Just like
Cache
college.
County is going to come together
Mhm.
in that kind of collaborative spirit up in Cache County. Will we ever do anything statewide? Well, maybe if the funding's there and we can figure out how to do that. But because Utah's such a vast state, right? We're going to do it regionally, and that's how we would do it. But the social aspect of it, to your husband's point, which I'm so glad that question came up.
Yes.
There's actual research behind.
Of course there is.
There is, if you can believe it or not.
I do. And you guys have got the data.
In fact, what I'm going to do as a follow-up, and I should have brought it with me, is my research index, because I've made an index of all the research studies that have been done on VR and the outcomes of that. But one of them is, how do I feel emotionally and socially after coming out of VR? And they report feeling more positive.
It's incredible.
People get married.
They feel
they meet in the metaverse and they
feel
get married
refreshed.
without even knowing each other.
You can put them in the outdoors. And there's an actual study on the where you are in virtuality, like the place. Are you indoors? Are you outdoors? And the difference of the feeling between the two. So imagine we can take our kids now and we can have class on the beach every day, or we can be on the moon, or, I can be outside in this wonderful environment, creating those positive feelings. I'm interacting with you socially. As I said earlier, the individual that I'd met in virtual reality, 100 times, when I finally met them in person, it was just as if we had been talking in person the day before.
That's it. You're in a classroom with the same peers and you have the same teacher.
Yes.
And so you're engaging with them just on a VR level. And, my husband is older than me, so he's not in the middle of the computer world and growing up with that and all of that. But our kids, as he knows, they make friends in the virtual world.
They do.
Right.
They do.
On their Roblox or whatever.
Right.
And they talk to them and they get along with them. This is a safe place where their conversations are happening just like they would at school, without there's more protections even there. They're not going to get in trouble with their friend.
The classroom management in this,
it's incredible.
It is incredible. As a teacher, I can have people separated into small groups where maybe they're working together, and I can hear those small groups.
But they can only hear
themselves. But they can only
other.
Hear themselves.
Oh yeah.
I can make it so that everybody can hear me, and they can be miles away on their own little island on Treasure Island,
just adventuring out.
They can be adventuring out, and they can hear me.
You're the voice of God coming from the clouds.
But then when it's time to bring everybody back together, maybe I'm listening to the small groups and they're all having the same problem. So I want to bring us back. I summon everybody. They're immediately right there in front of me. I can lock them.
And
they can't move, and I can
mute them.
This is amazing.
And I can say, do you know what?
You're teleporting kids.
I'm only going to allow, I'm going to have a 6-foot bubble around me. I don't want anybody coming in within 6 feet of me in virtual. And so now I have that bubble and no one can come in next to me. Right.
Yeah.
If I'm an autistic student or something like that, and I don't want somebody in my personal space, we can create those boundaries.
You can control the level of noise they get.
You
can control the color input
that is correct.
comes in.
We can control the color
input. Families.
And so
kids.
you can take that child and put them in a safe learning environment for them.
Correct.
Without having to build a new classroom.
That's correct.
And guess what? If they are on an IEP where they are in a 1-to-1 scenario or a 1-to-3 scenario, their aide can be right there with them.
Correct.
Amazing.
And their aide doesn't have to be with them. Their aide
they can be in there, and
the aide can be somewhere else physically.
Right. This is phenomenal.
Right.
And because they can build that bubble around them, they can either choose to go in and interact with people, or they can stay right out.
You are micro-focused on the need of the learner.
Of every
period
student.
At the end, and that is what education should be, and it's been lacking in this country.
Yeah, because teachers have to teach to the middle.
Yes.
It's the only thing they can do,
Because
right?
of the masses.
Right. And now
Or they can
you can
teach to the bottom.
individual, or they can teach to the bottom, or they can only teach to the top. I know some AP teachers who do that, right?
Oh yeah.
They only teach to the highest level,
Yeah.
and then everybody else is just. Well, I hope you can
That's
hold on.
because they're not
Good luck.
judged the
True.
same,
It's
but
true.
but I mean, George Bush, but
It hasn't improved.
that no child left
Right,
behind.
right.
CLB.
At every turn, our Department of Education our education system thus far has not taken a correct path at any fork in the road since the 70s.
Well, rest
Well,
in peace, Department of Ed.
Let me say this. There are, and I've been working with them nearly 3 decades.
And I'm not saying they're bad.
The educators are trying. The
Yes.
issue is the antiquated infrastructure
Yep.
and way. We've got to use technology to solve some of the problems that we can't just solve.
Mhm.
We have, think about it, the investment and the cost associated with all of the buildings,
It's true.
all
Yep.
of the facilities, just that alone, right? So yes, our teachers do want to do their very best, and they are doing their very best every
He's
day.
talking about the Department of Education
I
and the
understand.
failure.
Well,
My point is
I'm
that
talking about the structure.
it's
the
it's
structure they keep building.
Yeah, it's not the people in it,
No,
because
no.
and I'll go to bat for them all day long, because that's who I
Mhm.
work with. Dr. Dixon, great friend of mine, and I have worked with her in a number of different environments. You could not find a superintendent of schools that has a bigger heart and has done amazing
Here
things
in
for
Tooele
kids.
County.
Period. No, in the state of Utah. Dr. Sid Dixon, the state superintendent.
State superintendent, yeah.
So what I'm saying is, it's not necessarily the teachers or individuals that are causing the problem. It's that we have this structure that is very antiquated and hard to change.
It's antiquated, and there are perverse incentives that have creeped in.
Well,
And it's got so many strings in the
I
federal government.
my personal belief is this, and I think this goes beyond government or anything like that. You're actually trying to put 2 different philosophies together. Education is probably the most socialism we have in this country because of the way that it is structured.
Yeah.
We live in a capitalistic society. Those 2 things do not go together very well.
It's a square peg in a round
It's
hole.
a square peg in a round hole. And I don't know that that's anybody's fault, because the idea of everyone being able to get an education, to your point, there is no class, there is no, this system is fair for everyone.
Yeah.
You're putting an entity in a different environment. Like the charter world is the best example of this, right? So if you're going to start a charter school at a brick and mortar school, and you have funding from the state, and it's like a backpack, it follows the student.
Yeah.
So you get per kid funding, right? So that's the socialism, because everybody comes for free. But the state won't give you money to build a building. It's just not what they do. You can't go to a bank and ask for money for the building because you're too new. Banks don't take they don't take a chance.
Hopes and dreams.
Yes.
Yeah, they don't take a chance on
It's the
a
risk.
school. And
It's
so
the
what you
risk.
have to do is you have to go and get a developer to help you build that building. Well, a developer is there to make money.
Yeah.
That's what they do,
It's
right?
capitalism.
That's capitalism being run by a socialism. It doesn't work very well together. So they, instead of going like this, they go like this all of the time.
And the kids are the collateral of
And
that.
the kids are the collateral. So when we have this technology come along and you're eliminating as much of those 2 things that are going to butt heads as you can, and you can now level the playing field,
Take the best
there
from each.
isn't a need. Like, it's not even a situation of, I know the argument of getting rid of the Department of Education is what does that do to the poorest among us or the most vulnerable? In our situation, we no longer have that problem.
Yeah. It's phenomenal.
and we can take care of the most vulnerable among us because now we're leveling the playing field. When you throw those two entities together that just don't mesh, you have an issue. And it's not about Republicans and it's not about Democrats. It's about two systems that don't work well together.
You got to freeze that audio and put that on a TikTok, Dave, because that is the best description of what I've heard regarding education in this country. You're absolutely right. I'm so grateful you guys are here. I'm so grateful
Thank
you.
for your brainchild and for your expertise and you live by example. You're a phenomenal person. You got a wonderful family. I'm excited.
Likewise.
Yes. Thank you so much for letting us be here. We are so grateful.
I just think it's going to be funny picturing, full blown adult women with VRs on. That just makes me mad.
It is funny.
I can't get my girlfriend to put it on to save my life. I tried. No.
It is
I'll
funny.
make something interesting on there. Like, I don't know, something that cooking, and she's a good cook. They've got cooking options. You've got all these things you get to learn.
I'd show her that you can watch Real Housewives of wherever on there.
You totally
sitting
can.
on a beach.
I know. I mean, I've watched Netflix on it. Most of the time I put it on and play a shooting game and then I but I can only go maybe 45 minutes with it on.
Sure.
Well, that's it. This is why when you say there's going to be real breaks,
There's breaks.
because you got to take that thing
Yeah,
off.
you're in and out.
But what I notice, it doesn't hurt my head like when I'm trying to squint at a screen.
Right.
People, you may not understand how VR works. It puts that distance, but it puts you inside. So you're looking around, and everywhere you look, it's like being outside.
Coolest part of the technology. If you haven't,
Doesn't eye strain.
I'm just going to tell anyone, if you haven't tried on a VR and seen what it is, if you get the opportunity, like there's a place you can go play a VR game or do a VR tour. I would suggest doing it just for the appreciation of the technology that has been invented, and
It's phenomenal.
It's really amazing that when you turn your head, there's not like a lag. It's immediate response. It puts you there.
You can take your grandmother all around the world in VR, or
Well, not my
someone who
grandma,
can't walk, or someone who's nonverbal. I mean, there's so many aspects. You found an avenue that reaches out to so many people, and it feels like it's any age to learn.
To think about what you can do with, say, like you can have classes focused for deaf people, and you can have classes focused for blind people where the VR part isn't the visual, but there's the sound aspect
and the touching.
That when you turn, the sound turns with it. And no, this is just
so if you get on a roller coaster in VR, you could get motion sick. If you get motion sick in real life,
yes, you will.
You know what I've seen a lot of people do and get recorded? People terrified of heights. They get on the VR and try to face their fears. And someone in their family's a jerk and gets up behind them and shoves them because they're so immersed in the experience. They're terrified.
Exactly.
But it's so great because you get to face fears and you're safe. And I think there's so many American families right now who just want to know their kid is safe. And they're learning something.
And their kids are they are struggling because they are fighting every day to get their kid to go to school. Let alone do their homework.
COVID killed it. I'm telling you.
It is
Here's
the
what did
new
it during
pandemic. For me, it's the new epidemic.
Here's what killed it with COVID is I think kids are psychologically understand when they matter. And what did they do all during COVID? Back to school, back home, back to school. And it was all for the safety of the staff and everything else. First they were trying to say kids get it. We knew that was crap day one, but and it was political power plays that did all that. And the kids, they sat there and said, "Oh, we're the rope and tug of war. We're not
collateral damage.
We're not the important part of this education system. We're the rope and tug of war. Does the unions want to make a point this year or this month? Okay, we'll be back home. We don't matter." And they'll put us on this Zoom class where the teacher's checked out, half the kids are checked out, and we all still I didn't learn anything, but I still got that
Going
pass
through
out of it.
motions.
So the kids, I'm telling you, they recognize this. Kids know when the adults in the room care about them. And we showed them we didn't.
I agree.
And that we're going to see 10 years from now, you guys put it in your calendar, we're going to see a bomb.
All right, you're so gloom and doom.
No, it's serious. We're going to
I
see.
recognized it immediately.
No, you guys,
with
what
my
you guys are
kids.
doing is going to fix what's after the bomb. No, this bomb, it's coming.
It's here.
It's going to be a bomb where right now we're having a hard time getting it to where our young men and young women can match up in pairs on a level that we need. We ain't seen nothing
Socially,
yet.
yeah.
Let me end on this note.
Yes.
Tooele County is having a population boom and they can't build schools fast enough. Deseret Peak is going to be at capacity before it even opens.
It's at capacity
they do that
now.
every time they build schools.
And I wanted to be called Shadow of the
So-
Temple High School.
So,
Why'd they
no.
name it Deseret Peak? The temple's right there. Shadow of the Temple.
There
They
you
could
go.
have
That's what
the
that-
football
now
team
that's
could have been
all I'm gonna hear
the
now.
the missionaries or it could have been
That's good. I like
Saturday
that.
morning drowners, whatever. They could have named it all. They could have done so many things, but they
Can we get
Deseret
back to
Peak.
the fact
Yeah.
that
All
it
right, go on.
got built and was already at capacity
it was
when
at
they built it?
capacity before they even finished the foundation.
And
It's
Well, I
crazy.
Stansbury's got double
I
the
know how
kids.
they can add classrooms.
Yes.
This is
Very
brilliant.
cheaply
Yes.
right now
You guys could do it in
in Wendover.
anywhere.
Oh
in
yeah.
Grantsville.
Yeah.
Yes. There you go. Stockton.
They're building
Vernon,
that new school in Stansbury Park right now. It's
Junior
middle.
high.
the
Yeah.
junior high.
And that should be prime for this because that's your age range.
Absolutely.
And I
it's-
hope Excelsior's jumping on the train here. So what does it take to
Holly.
get it in Excelsior?
Holly, I think you and I know who our next phone call is.
Hey, Matt. Is it Matt?
Yeah.
Matt.
I mean, is he the only one we need to convince?
Well, I would imagine the board would have something to say about it. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I think it's just a conversation.
You bring
that
your
needs to
your
start.
data, and we have a point that it can't be argued. And why aren't we trying it? Why aren't we the first? Let's be the first. The first county to do it. The first Excelsior should be the first school in Utah
Charter. Yep.
to do it here in Utah. And Governor Cox should be the first governor to push it. And if he believes in it,
That's right.
being someone from
I
a rural
Completely
area,
agree. Yeah.
I bet
His wife's platform is all about education and supporting teachers. She has a big event every year where they pamper the teachers. They roll out the red carpet for that. It's an amazing project that she's working on, and I think this is right up their alley.
well, and how do we do
So,
This
this?
is perfect, but
so
My big
Mrs.
thing,
Cox,
I want to see what you guys do down at the reservation. I want to see them get some relief.
I couldn't agree more.
That's huge.
Come go with us.
Because if
We'd love it.
yeah.
it's
Let's take the podcast on the road
Amen.
and
Yeah.
go
We
down
can
to
do
the
it.
Four
Yeah, let's go
Corners.
do it.
Mhm.
yeah, I'll come down definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's beautiful country down there.
It is.
It's gorgeous.
It's I can't express into the words the feelings you get when you go down there because it is depressing.
It is.
It's
And
very
it-
depressing
I'm next to some of the most beautiful land you'll ever see.
and
I mean, it's gorgeous.
Oh,
and
yeah.
wonderful people.
Oh, wonderful.
But you'll see the heights of humanity and the deepest despairs all you won't even
You won't
exhale
recognize your
and you'll see
country.
both of them.
That is
You know,
correct.
How is this America?
is
We've
correct.
said this many times that this project, this vision that we're working on is not for the faint of heart, because it's a social justice movement as much as it is an education movement. And so there are generational barriers that we're trying to break down.
I hope they open the door for you.
The perseverance
Thank you.
is there. I mean, we're committed. This isn't the time to talk about the ups and downs that we've had already, just getting to where we are. But we're in here for the long haul because for us, to your point, Holly, for us, it's about putting this in as many hands, putting us in the hands of as many families as possible wherever you are.
And you
wherever
guys
you
are
are.
taking the first step on the moon, essentially, because this is where the future is. how great that you're part of it and your hard work and your
Part of it,
sacrifices
you guys
are
are
bringing it to
Thank
life.
you.
And I think every single person should go check out their website.
Mhm.
Yep.
Go check out what this is.
Thank you.
Talk to your kids about this because March 20 is right around the corner.
Yes.
And if your kids are serious about starting this next year, I mean, I talked to my kids and my daughter and son were like, what about our friends? I'm like, well, get your friends to do it. You know, maybe that's
and
what
they
it
will
takes.
make new friends.
I
They're
think the
going to
younger
have
they
a
start,
class. Mhm.
I think the
That's a good
more
point.
normal this will be.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I love that point. I mean, I think that's very valid.
So
Yeah.
Mhm.
elementary schools,
Mhm. Now, if you see
Open
this
your
after
doors to
March
this.
20th, still go to the website because we could have spots available. We're keeping enrollment open.
because you're focusing on the need of the child.
And you know what we can do too is if we have that much of a response, we can go back to the state and request more spots.
Correct.
I'm sorry
Okay.
that session just got over because I guarantee Governor Cox would love to hear about this. And Nicolene Peck,
Yeah.
who is
And
Tooele's
Bridger.
representative,
Bridger's very
but
open to
Nicolene
this
is
stuff.
all about education and has been for 3
Mhm.
decades. This, have you met Nicolene?
No, we
We
have
need to
not.
get
met,
you in
but
front of
let's do
Nicolene.
this.
Well,
Yeah,
this is
because-
also up her alley. She's
Education.
she's
30
been
years.
kind of an educator herself, more in like the family education. She writes books on how to raise your kids to be self-governing kids.
Mm.
And that's a libertarian message.
Yeah, but she's
And-
been on the Hill for all the education bills
Yeah,
well
and-
before she became
And
a
so
representative.
that'd be a good one to get involved there. And this is also another thing when you go into this virtual reality. Right now there's a big argument in schools about the political leanings of the teachers and all that. And I think when there is a brick and mortar school where you're locked into that school because of your geographical location, that is an invalid argument. But if you're virtual reality where you're not locked into that, you can choose, if that's what you want, to send your child to a teacher who wants to, lean heavy into Howard Zinn all day and all that. And that's
You
fine.
have to follow the state law.
Yeah.
But
know?
how great that
Mhm.
you're teaching truth, history and truth. So you have a teacher that's going to show you the civil rights movement and they're going to take you into it.
That
Now
was one of
kids
the
are
things you
learning
showed
it
on your commercial was
phenomenally.
I mean, being in there in civil rights. I mean, imagine a child signs on and listens to Martin Luther King Jr.
Is that a
Speak.
speech?
You know, we have the La Amistad, and I every once in a while I'll take people onto the La Amistad. It's very realistic.
What
We won't
is the
take-
law?
That
It's one of the
is-
slave
it's one of the
ships.
slave
Oh,
ships.
yes. Okay.
And you can go down into the gallows and you can see the platforms and you see the slaves that are naked and they are chained together. And so you go down and you see that. You see the story about the La Amistad, which was where the slaves actually
I saw
took
the movie.
over
Mm.
Yes.
the ship, right?
Yes.
They
Right.
took over the ship, and it ended up not. It didn't end well, but you see the
Spirit.
woman slave with her baby on the edge, ready to jump off
Because it's a better
of
life
the boat.
than
So-
what they were.
So
Yeah, sad.
we have taken students through that this program in California. These students who were not engaged in school, ready to drop out, they're in this alternative program because it's the last ditch effort to get them to graduate. They're in gangs. Most of them are part of the Latino gangs that are up there around the migrant fields, and they experienced the La Amistad and
And
had
it-
to reflect on
And
it.
it changed them.
Of course. And you're not teaching right or wrong.
No.
You're teaching truth. We're facing what happened in real life.
Correct.
And you, as a kid, are going to see what happened. And by learning what happened, you stop it from happening again.
Yeah.
And you're recognizing
And
wrong
tho-
and
and
right
those-
on your own.
Yeah. And those kids that were in gangs were in rival gangs.
Hmm.
And when they got into VR, because they could be whatever they wanted in the avatar, they didn't actually know they were in rival gangs. So now they're interacting with each other,
Building a friendship.
not knowing. until they come out and then they can see each other and they can see that they're in rival gangs. But when they're in VR, they have no idea.
It's a level
And
playing
it
field.
changes. Exactly. It changes the game completely and your mindset, right? So,
and also, I mean, I like the idea, and this is, you're adding that dopamine hit to learning.
Yeah.
And
that's such a good point.
That's
right?
a heavy thing right there. Because right now, I mean, teenagers are getting that
They're
dopamine
chasing
hit
it.
in other ways.
Right.
You know, sadly, a lot of them are driving fast. That doesn't end well. Or
They're in the TikTok abyss. Next,
you know,
next.
Yes, that's right.
It's hard to keep up with that too.
It's the
got
new drug.
Yeah.
It's
It
the
is.
new drug. Mhm.
And every one of us is addicted to it
We
in
are
some way.
we are all
And
mhm.
it's, why are we not using technology to make us better? That's what it's
exactly
for.
breaking
right?
those barriers.
I cannot thank you guys enough. I
Oh
Yes.
my
so
gosh, we
honored to
cannot
meet
thank
you.
you
Yeah,
enough.
And,
Thank you so much.
invite
Use
us-
this video any way you want. If
Yeah.
you want to cut
Thank
it up and
Oh,
edit
thank
it
you.
or share it, use it. It's yours. We're
if we get any comments, we'll
welcome
forward
you
them on to you.
anytime.
Yes, please do.
And please invite us to one of your events you got
We
going
will.
on.
Oh, we will
We
absolutely
absolutely
down.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'd like to
We would
sit in
love
a
it.
classroom, see what it looks like, you
Yeah.
know.
Please.
We will do that. We are doing that all over the state right now. So
Well, let us know when,
That's
and I'd like
perfect.
to bring my kids.
Okay.
and
Okay,
see
that
if-
would be
yes,
great.
we'll
what
do
they
that.
say.
Yes,
We'd love it.
we will do it.
If your
We'd love
kid's
it.
the ambassador, I bet he's
know.
the cutest one on
Well,
the planet.
sometimes
Yes,
he's
pretty dang
cooperative
cute.
and sometimes he's not because
Kids
he's done
are
it so
hard.
much. I'm like, Dane, you've got to do the frog dissection again. He's like, Mom, I've done it a
He's
million
still a
times.
kid,
I'm
though,
like,
right?
this is your job.
Do it with your eyes closed this time.
Yes.
Show us what you know.
This is what work is like. This is real life. You have to do things you don't want to do.
Thank you for inviting us.
No,
We're
thank you
just
for
so
coming
grateful.
on. Thank you
Yeah.
for inventing this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Angie.
thank you. That's really kind of you to say.
No,
I
that's
appreciate that.
important.
Thank
This is that you've delivered something. I mean, I read Ready Player One, and you know it's coming, but
Yeah.
I mean, I've been griping on this show about our education system, how it's
Mhm.
structured for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, I what was that?
Matt's been in that
What was
hot
that
seat a couple
teacher,
times.
Has he?
What was that teacher in New York? It wasn't Gotti. That was the gangler.
Oh.
Gatto. No. James.
Are you talking about not the Superman movie? What are you talking about?
There was a teacher in New York who
In Harlem?
I might have been, but he broke out the education. He got in trouble for it at first, but he worked at a rough school, and he actually
Oh,
I
you're
know.
Are
talking
you
about
describing Lean on Me, the
no,
movie?
no, not a movie. This is
That
a
was a
real
great
guy.
movie.
Yeah, it was
There's
a
a
great
great
movie.
movie
Is
about
it
you
Gatto?
guys.
Is that his last name?
But
He
what
wrote
did he
books
do
on
to
it.
break out of it?
He taught high school, but he had the kids set up little businesses. He taught the kids. He broke education down into real life.
Real life.
And his kids went on very successfully. John Allen Gatto, gosh, I wish.
You know what you should do? This is a
Google it.
device
Yeah.
that is meant for education.
But anyways, but what he did is he broke out of that. He actually got in trouble with the Department of Education
I'm
for
sure
it.
they didn't like it.
And but you guys are able to come at it from the outside and
Right.
work on it from
There
the
you
outside,
go.
like a lot of charter schools has. I know charter schools and private schools get a lot of flack from the average people, but they're setting up a system where we're going to try something new. We're going
Right.
to try something different.
Mhm.
And
I
I
just
think
don't
that's
understand
excellent.
why public school isn't taking the lead of the charters that are successful and changing everything. I know it'd be hard for public schools to change, but
What
the
a
kids are
novel
worth
idea.
it.
That's
Our
a
future's
that would be
worth
another
it.
2-hour podcast
Yeah.
or three.
because there are, it's a challenge to change
Well,
a
as
ship
a-
like that. Superintendents, there are superintendents out there that really want that change to happen.
Yeah.
And when they try that,
It's a big.
They're getting bombs from all sides.
exactly.
Correct.
So
I get
it's
that.
not
It's
worth
a
it
huge
to
structure.
try.
Matt has
It is.
been in that boat.
I can only imagine what he, just of our 2-school charter school here, Excelsior Charter School, which is a great school, by the way. What he and his team have put up with, from parents, from
Well, it's because he has to run for political office in what he does at the state board.
Mhm.
But as a principal and a teacher and a politician,
Yes.
there's that they've got a lot of luxuries. They don't, that, you know, their teachers are not on the unions and things
Right.
like the public
Right.
school, but you're still getting bombed from all sides. And yet when you have a successful platform,
Mm-hmm.
how do you share it so that everybody gains success from it? And I feel like you're taking what you noticed from that successful platform,
Right.
you're putting it into her idea of a everybody gets it platform.
Well,
And now the marriage is perfect, which is why I think me and many others would want to be a part of it.
Yes.
Well,
Teachers
thank
are
you.
going to want to be a part of this because they
Yes.
get to be
well, and
who
you
they
can
want to be
Right.
and share.
one
You're
thing the
100%
average
correct.
school may not want to take on from Excelsior is their kind of morality platform. That may be something that they don't want to push. I could see that a school's like, oh, we don't want to indoctrinate them into that.
Into
Whereas a
what?
charter school, they've
The
got
golden rule.
they've kind of got a morality platform that a lot of schools I could see, but you could have both on this VR and you could shop for it, and you're not the not being geographically tied
Mm-hmm.
is
It's
huge.
the key.
It's huge.
It's the key.
And yes, our and it's not the department of it. It's well, okay, I'll just say it like this. Government only does one thing, and that's turn gold into shit. And the
Settle
minute
down.
government got involved with education, that's what it did. What has the government gotten involved with it and improved? How to
Nothing.
do with our health care? Has
But
that panned out
it's
for
true
us?
though, and these guys have found the way to bring us back to light.
And you guys are doing it in a free market way.
Well,
the way
in the
the
free
free markets.
We're leveraging both worlds, right?
Yes.
Yes,
We
the
are
square
leverage
hole.
exactly.
You're putting that round peg in there.
We understand the free market and how you have to operate. Now,
You have to
this isn't-
deliver
this
to your
is-
customer.
You have to deliver to your customer, and you have to be profitable. And
Yes.
that is what people don't understand.
Mhm.
School districts, to Angie's point, do not have to be profitable. In fact, what do they have to do? They have to spend every last dime or they lose it.
Yes.
It's never about how well did we do this year with our profits, because you have to spend it or you lose it.
Just
right?
how many graduated? Can
Yes.
they read? We don't know.
Yes.
Can they
So
do math?
in
We
the
don't
free
know.
market
They
world, though,
graduated.
you have to be profitable. And so we have found a way to blend our for-profit Oasis with a nonprofit, Virtual Horizons.
This is the genius part.
and putting the kid, I mean, our philosophy really is either everybody counts or nobody counts.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point. These are individual souls. They
Right.
all matter.
And they
Every
matter in
single
their
one
own
of
way.
them.
That's
And
correct.
the parents,
That's correct.
there isn't
Yes.
a parent alive that doesn't want their
Right.
child to do better.
All
And
parents
there
love
are
their children.
teachers that go into being teachers that don't want
Correct.
to do this.
Exactly.
I'll tell you what, as a child who fell through the cracks all
Mhm.
through my
Mhm.
I fell through the cracks hard. And it was because of the old alternative school that I got a diploma and got to join the army and do all that.
Mhm.
you
I
know?
love this for us. I love this
and
for our
and
society.
this option you guys are giving, and you know, I personally know lots of kids, lots of young men are falling through the cracks right now.
We're
And
gonna get them. We're
I-
gonna get them back.
I want to get that always. I'm like, man, Tooele needs to step up and just they're doing the stuff. Tooele, just put a poster up and then say, yeah, we'll sign your kid up for it.
Yeah, just create a little outside classroom,
They-
and
do-
that way they have a designated
The
meeting
kids
spot
can-
once a month for whatever the
Exactly.
VR
What's-
students are
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, here's the thing.
We can
Everywhere.
put that up tomorrow. We
Yeah.
can put that up
Okay,
tomorrow.
we
Yeah,
gotta
really.
end
the
this
kids
show.
can do it
We
from
have to
home.
end the
It's
Yes.
show.
a 3-hour show.
Yes,
we
we
did a
did.
3-hour show.
I know I got to wake
I
up.
walked in here
Thank
thinking, are we
you.
going to have 2 hours? We blew
Well,
through
we're
that
just
2
grateful
hours.
to you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
I feel
Thank
like
you.
we're the lucky ones.
Thank
guys
you
are
for what you're
incredible.
doing.
Yeah.
And
Thank
we
you.
share this and this stays up. And so
Great.
Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, and all of you that are watching in future time, reach out to the school, check out the website. We've shared it in the
Yeah,
comments.
Virtual
It's-
Horizons Utah.
Will you share that in the bio of the post?
Yeah,
Their
I'll put
website.
them in there.
So you can enter in the lottery if you want your
Mhm.
child to go.
Yep.
If you're a teacher and you're interested, check out their website. And if you're an investor and you're interested, check out their Oasis website.
Yes.
And if
Yep.
you'd like to donate to to this cause, go to their
Virtual
Horizon website.
Yes.
So everybody join us next week. Thank you, Angie, and thank you so much.
Thank
Kim.
you
Thank
so
you.
much.
You
This
ladies
has
are
been
awesome.
so
Appreciate
fun.
it.
Next
Thank
week
you.
we're going to have the young Republican guest.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, I'm losing my voice. Watch on the internet for us. Please stay tuned with us Friday night, 6 to 8. Normally.
Fridays are tough. Everyone's out drinking their beer.